I've never heard a church this quiet. Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. My name is Gary Kadash. I am the Vice Chairman, acting as Chairman of the GAC Commission. I would like to open this meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got a lot of important business to conduct tonight. Rescue Mays to join us. First order of business is to review the public commission meetings for the public meeting of notes for the meeting of February 16th.
Commissioner Chair, if I may just raise a point of order. At the March 11th special meeting, I mentioned that Commissioner McLear's term has expired. We did not address that at the meeting. The county delegation has since addressed it and declared a vacancy, which means there is no one in that seat. So I do have to object that Mr. McLear is sitting at the commissioner's table and about to participate in votes.
Well, my attorneys say that that's not correct, and I would like to pursue that through the law and through the courts, and we'll find out who feels that we're right or wrong. And I was nominated to be a member of this group. I was put up for 5 years, which is, this area commissioner, and it says at the top, one appointment to 5-year commissioner of 5-year. And we had conferring information from Mr. Sylvia, who I believe is here, and is in charge of, not in charge of, but is the head of the organization. And I don't really particularly want to make a big deal out of this, but that's what my lawyers tell me. And when you pay your lawyer, you're supposed to pay your lawyer. You're supposed to listen to your lawyer. And so I'm listening to my lawyer.
Okay, David, this is the third time you've been in a meeting. We never get past the opening minutes, and we've already gone into a dispute. If you look on the agenda, we have commissioner status. After new commissioner swearing in, I recognize you've already been sworn in, but that's traditionally, we're not going to do a swearing in because I accept that you were sworn in at another place and another time in another forum. But what I would like to do is proceed with approving the minutes of the prior meetings.
I have no objection to that. I just wanted my objection noted for the record.
Okay, it's noted for the record, and we will be addressing that in addition to what Commissioner McLear had to say on his behalf. I have a copy of a letter from Chairman Sylvia. I also have a copy of an opinion from a lawyer, so we have two different points of view here. I have a proposal, especially since there's been a notice given for an appointment hearing to be done April 26th, is it?
12th.
April 12th, with applicants to come in by the 2nd, I think it was, or something like that.
Friday before.
We're ballpark folks. So we are weeks away from either reappointing Commissioner McLear or appointing a different person. So let's go through the meeting agenda. It's so recorded. So has everybody read, the commissioners, have you read the minutes of the February 16th meeting, and does anybody have any comments? or corrections?
Yes, on page 1, under financial MD&A, it says Kathy reported out on. Every committee that I've been on, we usually use either first and last name because the chance of two Kathys being in a small group like this is high. So I think usual protocol is first name, last name, or first initial, last name. So
That's a
suggest we
fair
say
comment,
Kathy
thank
White.
you. We can make that change.
And if I may, could we strike out on, so it just reads Kathy White reported the January and year-to-date financials? Because out on is, I think, extraneous
Yeah,
language.
that's fine. Anybody else have any comments on,
Page 3 of 5, subparagraph 3 at the top. I need to clarify the question that I asked. It says Commissioner Ness asked if you would require approval of the U.S. Department of the Interior. I think I stated actually that there's an encumbrance under a federal program called the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and the enabling legislation and that program would require the approval of up to 4 parties, which is the county commissioners, the county delegation, the administrators of this federal program that are in Concord that were spoken to in August of 2020, and potentially the U.S. Department of the Interior. So I think that clarifies the nature of the question I was asking.
okay, would you be so kind as to, Becky is not here, who's taking notes? Kirsten. Would you be so kind as to send to Kirsten that language? So
Sure.
that it can be inserted in that, and I will make a motion to approve the minutes with those corrections requested by Commissioner Ness and Commissioner Strang. All in favor? Aye. Did you vote aye?
I did.
Okay. Next special meeting is the Commissioners March 1st. 2022, this is a special commissioners meeting called by Commissioner Wood, Strang, and Ness. Have you all read the minutes of that meeting? I have some comments on that. I do not believe that the comments that I made during that meeting, as well as the comments that I made when I recused myself from that meeting, are accurate, but so I am going to abstain from voting on those. There are enough commissioners here to vote them to be approved, so you don't need my vote, but I will call for a vote, a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. The minutes for Public Special Commission meeting on March 11th, 2022. This was a special meeting called by Commissioner Wood, Commissioner Kadash, and Commissioner McLear. And I would like to, as I did at that meeting, thank Commissioner Wood for coming forward and recognizing the urgency and importance to have that special meeting since the capital budget had been frozen prior to that, and that the HVAC equipment that had been ordered and was en route in order for air conditioning in the base lodge for the summer of 2022 was in jeopardy of being sold to somebody else. And we had a matter of 24 hours, and we had a very good meeting, and the minutes reflect the subject of that. So once again, thank you to Jade for...
There's no need to thank me. I actually thank you for getting the information over in a timely fashion so that we could approve that project.
Well, it's good to have that type of collaboration. So any comments on the minutes?
Tom, did that happen? Have we gotten anything yet, or?
Well, we paid for it. We paid for it.
I know we paid for it, but have we gotten anything? Close.
No. I mean, it'll all be brought on property when it's ready to be installed.
Okay.
So it's being collected, I think, it's like in
multiple
4 different
locations.
states right now, so it's being collected so they can get ready for install in the next month or 2.
Great, so you're getting it in pieces. Great. Congratulations.
Okay, so are there any other comments on that special meeting on the March 11th? I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. We would, the next order of business is new commissioner swear-in. I have a copy of Commissioner Strang's oath of office, signed and notarized at another point in time in another location that traditionally done at these meetings, but do not have to be done at this meeting. So, Commissioner Strang, welcome to the commission.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to working with you. I have also received notice from Commissioner Strang that the Code of Ethics, which is typically signed by the commissioners and has been signed by every commissioner since it was imposed, except for Commissioner Ness, who opposes it. If he would please sign it, and he has told me that he will not sign it until his lawyer has reviewed it. So we assume once your lawyer's reviewed it, we'll hear from you as to what your status is.
Happy to.
Okay, and if you have any questions on it, please feel free to ask me or any of the other commissioners. And you may even want to ask former Commissioner Nix, if you know, because he was one of the drafters.
Okay.
All right, now to the subject that David brought up. And I hope to have a calm dialogue on this. I have a copy of a letter dated January, or when did you send this to me? March 16th, from Mike Sylvia. It was a letter sent to Rusty McLear informing him that his term as commissioner of the GAC expired on November of 2020, and you are not presently validly serving as a GAC commissioner. We all have recognized that the laws state that a commissioner will be, if in the situation of a vacancy, a commissioner will be appointed only for the term that is unserved. And Chair Sylvia is correct that Rusty McLear's term should have expired in November 20, and since that time he has been serving as a de facto commissioner in front of everybody, in front of the delegation, in front of the delegation's chair and vice chair since November 2020 until the point of this letter that came in. I have a opinion letter from a legal firm, which I do not need to disclose who they are, and it says, is Rusty a valid GAC commissioner? And their legal opinion is, yes, he was. He was appointed in May, June 2020 for what was repeatedly noticed by the delegation as a 5-year term of appointment. Contrary to Dr. Strang's term, which was noticed as filling a vacancy for only until November 2022. And it's a long legal brief, and I don't think we need to go through it word by word, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of law that says that even if not validly appointed at the time, Rusty's votes are valid as a de facto officer. For example, anytime he was one of 3 people voting since 2020, you would go back and say, well, they weren't valid. Well, they were because he was de facto, because he was operating in open public and nobody was raising their hand every meeting and saying, you are not a commissioner. So in case law, and he continues to be in office until the successor is appointed. And I'm just going to read one short piece of the case law. An officer who has been properly appointed and who is serving in a particular position may be found to be made de facto officer as opposed to a mere usurper of power, enjoying certain privileges and protections. The de facto officer is one who has reputation of being the officer he or she assumes to be, and yet is not a good officer in point of law. So what they're saying is, if there was an error made, and there was an error made here, and I don't think it was, Mike, it wasn't, this was during COVID, And I recall you and Brian and I have a discussion that bringing the delegation together was a big problem at that time. It was expensive and it was only 4 months. So yes, there was an error made. But we've operated quite well since then. And Rusty has performed without any controversy that I know of. And he has been functioning as de facto. So what I'm proposing is that he sits in this meeting as de facto. And in April, in a matter of weeks, we're going to have another appointment hearing. And the delegation, and Rusty has agreed that he has an interest in reapplying and will be considered with other people that will apply. And if he is reappointed, he will serve out his term for the remainder of the 5 years. If he's not, somebody else will do that. But that's going to require what, Michael, I've been trying to have a meeting with you for months and months and months on, and Brian was trying to have a meeting. That will require an agreement of reason amongst us. And since we're here to make sure that Gunstock is healthy and that the management of Gunstock are free to move forward without concerns of issues, of any political issues or any improprieties here, I would suggest, and I will defer to you, to Michael, to either concur with me or to come up with an alternative solution, that we allow Rusty to continue de facto until the point in time where you have the next appointment hearing, which is in April, and he is either reappointed or not.
I'd like to make a point of order.
Sure.
So, first, if the anonymous legal brief that you're reading from is what was circulated is that what was circulated in the last 24 hours by email?
Yes.
And so if the commission has received counsel, why are the commissioners not allowed to know who counsel is that provided that information?
Did you receive this letter?
Peter, I don't know how to answer your question. I'm just told that I can rely on this information.
I think if you're introducing information that we're supposed to consider, you need to identify the source of the information.
Right, so if someone's giving you legal advice regarding New Hampshire law, the first thing I'd like to know is what's their name and what's their bar number.
Didn't you just say that you got a copy of this letter?
Right, it's completely
It's
anonymous. I don't know if it came from someone who works at
No, I
Wendy's.
forwarded it to them, Rusty.
There's no name, no identification on it. What I find exceptionally curious is it goes off into citing something called Corpus Juris Secundum, which is a legal encyclopedia. And of all things, since I am a member of the Georgia Bar, a case from Georgia in New Hampshire. I don't know how often New Hampshire law cites Georgia law, but the point is, we're entitled to know where legal advice is coming from. And so if that is legal advice that any member of this commission is relying upon, we need to know who it came from. Did it come from Zoom Legal, or did it come from some lawyer who has credentials? That's what we're asking.
Do you see any problem with giving me
Pardon?
Do you see any problem with sharing that information?
Well, Peter, what I'm trying to address here, what I'm asking the commission to do, what I'm asking the delegation to do, on behalf of Gunstock Mountain Resort, is to try to put some things aside, get out of the legal battles that we've been in for months, and move forward. This is a reasonable request that we agree to move forward for one meeting, allow Commissioner McLear to continue performing de facto, as his lawyer has told him he can, and we conduct the meeting, and look at what it is right now. It's 20 minutes, and we've only approved minutes, and we haven't got into any of the important business of the day.
So, and we don't know who Rusty's lawyer is. I think Rusty has the means to hire the best counsel he's willing to pay for. And so, not telling us where that alleged legal opinion or brief, which is of neither, within my experience, and not knowing who it came from makes it questionable. So in order to try and achieve some reasonable resolution of this, what I would suggest is that we acknowledge that it's the delegation that's the appointed authority under the enabling legislation. And it is the delegation, and only the delegation, that has the authority to determine who is a commissioner and when. So what I would suggest is that the commission adopt a resolution that acknowledges that, in fact, the delegation has provided notice to Commissioner McLear. There is a vacancy that will be filled on April 12th. And there is a question of law, which is, did his term expire in November of 2020 or at some time thereafter? And you've made an admission that his term is questionable and he may be a de facto officer. And accordingly, under the resolution I'm proposing, he should recuse himself or abstain from any votes at this meeting, understanding that there's a legal question that needs to be answered. And that he abstain until he's either reappointed, when he is then a valid commissioner, because if he takes a vote now, when his status that is questionable has been publicly acknowledged, anything that he participates in is suspect.
Well, first of all, I don't admit that my status is questionable. I have said, yes, I will reapply, and I said that my letter to the commission, that is solely to stop the conversation that continues to go on about my position. And I don't plan on resigning. I plan on reapplying. And if I reapply and I get put in or get voted in as a member, then I would think that would stop most of this conversation. So I'm not saying I'm resigning.
I don't think anyone had asked you to resign.
Yes, they have.
Well, I'm not aware of that, and that's not part of the conversation right now. The conversation is
These guys
that
right up front have.
you've been given notice by the body that appoints you that you're not in office. And so there is a question of law. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
And the pragmatic thing for the commission to do is to have a resolution acknowledging that there is an issue, that you should recuse yourself during this questionable status, and we can move forward.
If we could do that, but we've been trying to talk to Mr. Sylvia for months, and he doesn't answer. How many letters do we have?
Well, it goes back until, it was right after the Ness hearing that this started, and the Ness hearing was September 9th.
Okay, so we have a lot of letters back and forth, back,
Just
no
or
forth.
one way.
If I might, I think the controlling legal authority here is RSA 399:8, vacancies. If a vacancy occurs in said commission, it shall be filled for the remainder of the term. That's the law. No legal brief, no one person's wrong decision can overrule state law. The only way to change state law is to introduce a bill in the legislature, have it passed by both houses, and signed by the governor. So this is the controlling law, and that is that Rusty's term expired in November of 2020. And the county delegation has since ruled that there is a vacancy. That means there is no one in the seat. It really doesn't matter if Rusty wants to stay, if he's refusing to resign. We're not talking about prior votes. We're talking about what's happening right here and now. And so I support Commissioner Ness's resolution that Mr. McLear be recused from any further votes.
Your fans in Belknap County are not with you about that.
We're not talking about political support in Belknap County, Rusty. We're talking about following the law.
No, we're talking about political support. At some point. What's that?
Can I make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
I will second that.
So should we take a vote? Or do we want to discuss?
Can you read the resolution?
So,
Can you-
the resolution is that the commission adopt a resolution that acknowledges the delegation, that would be the Belknap County delegation, provided a notice to the commission that Commissioner McLear's position was in question, that they deemed it vacant, and that vacancy will be filled on April 12th. I believe that they raised the issue of the two provisions of the enabling legislation, which is 399:4 and :8. And that given that his term may have expired on November 17th, 2020, the commission should recognize the delegation's conclusion as to this matter, since they're the appointed agency, and the appropriate and pragmatic thing in the short term, which would be until a vote is taken on April 12th, is to cause Commissioner McLear to recuse himself from any votes.
May I say something?
Yeah.
One thing I would like to edit, and that if I may, or make a change to it, is say, when you say that I am about to be recused, I want to make sure it says through no fault of my own.
That's fine. I think we all recognize there's a question of law here, and no one's alleging any ill will or bad.
No, I just want to make sure as we go down the road. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Peter, I've heard your motion. Why is it so important to you when it's clear that there was an error here and that Commissioner McLear has been functioning since November 2020 as de facto commissioner?
Can we stop with using the Latin term de facto and simply agree that the appointed agency has raised legal questions as to the validity of his acts as a commissioner? And if we are on notice that there is a legal question, which then brings into question his participation in any action by the commission, pragmatically, we're saying, please recuse yourself until this issue is resolved, which may be multiple ways. It may be resolved by a court of law, or it may be resolved by...
Do me a favor, I let you finish, let me finish. And I'm chair, and I'll call on you when you can give a comment. Please don't interrupt me. We are here to do our work for Gunstock Mountain Resort. If this motion is carried forward, then we are going to put in question every vote that Commissioner McLear had from November 20 forward. Yes, and every time, yes, and every time there was a 3-person vote, and that was frequent because you weren't in a lot of meetings, he was the 3rd vote. So they can go back and look at those and determine, were those votes valid? And if he was not, if we are now saying he wasn't the commissioner, and therefore we need to reappoint him, what I'm proposing here is that we move forward. We recognize there was a mistake made. I say no harm done, because to my knowledge, and to everybody that I know of, Mr. McLear operated with good intentions and did a great job and continued to do a job. And what I am suggesting is that Mr. McLear remains in his chair until April 12th, is it? April 12th, when there is a new appointment, and he either gets appointed as the chair and he comes back into his seat, or if somebody else comes. But what that does is it closes the loop, frankly, on if we're going to have any issues of past votes and whatnot. Yes, David.
No one is talking about past votes. Commissioner Ness's resolution is for him to recuse himself from votes from this point on. It has been duly motioned and seconded. It cannot be ignored. It has to be brought to a vote.
Okay. Let's have a roll call vote on it. Peter?
Can you repeat the motions for the record? It was very long.
It was. Let me see if I can do it in parts. So, we're proposing a resolution acknowledging that, A, the county delegation provided the commission with notice that Commissioner McLear's commissionership was in question, that they acknowledged a vacancy existed that will be filled on April 12th, 2022, that in the delegation's view, Commissioner McLear's term expired on or about November 17, 2020, and that the resolution recognizes the delegation's conclusion as to this matter since they are the appointed agency under the law, and that in order to be pragmatic, the commission adopts the resolution asking that Commissioner McLear recuse himself from this meeting until someone is appointed as a successor on April 12th.
Okay, we have a second. Who seconded? Jade seconded. Let's do a roll call vote. Peter?
Approved.
David?
Approved.
Yes.
Okay, and motion passes.
Can I make one comment? It's very clear that in legal remedies, because of your fear about past votes being questioned, it's entirely clear that tribunals or parties can agree to retroactive or prospective solutions to a legal issue. So it's not necessarily a fait accompli that all of his votes will be then questioned. That's up to the parties deciding how this matter is going.
Thank you.
Can I ask that you and Mr. McLear also record your votes, please?
Yeah, we vote nay.
I'm sorry?
Nay. Russ is supposed to recuse himself, so. All right, motion passes 3-1. Next order of business, and this is another bump in the road. The reason we have nomination and election of officers after a new commissioner is elected is because we have a full house. And traditionally, we've waited one commission meeting so that we got to know each other, so that we could make nominations as to who would become the next chair, the next vice chair, and the next secretary. We have on the agenda to do that because I believe that we have a full house with the swearing in of Commissioner Strang. I would like to make a motion that we defer the election of officers until after the April 12th appointment of the new commissioner. So we have 5 commissioners sitting at the table electing their next officers. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Discussion?
Yep.
Our bylaws require us to elect officers at this meeting, and it is Article 2, Section 2A, under election. It says the chair, vice chair, and secretary shall, not may, but shall be elected at the first regularly scheduled meeting following the swearing in of members duly appointed by the Belknap Delegation. We have to elect officers today.
Read it again. At the next.
At the next,
You were sworn in. You were
at the
sworn in
first regularly scheduled meeting following the swearing in of members duly appointed by the Belknap Delegation. So I was duly appointed and sworn in
Okay.
February 26th, following my first swearing in of February 22nd. So this is the first regularly scheduled meeting following the swearing in of members duly appointed by the Belknap Delegation. We are required by the bylaws to elect officers today. We can't change our bylaws in one week. Okay, so we have to follow the bylaws here.
Well, let's take a vote on the motion. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion fails. We'll move forward to election of officers. And I'll call for nominations. I would like to nominate myself for chair. I would like to nominate Jade Wood as vice chair. And I would like to leave the nomination for secretary up to others. The reason I would like to nominate myself for chair is I have the most experience of anyone currently sitting at this table in overseeing and managing a board, as well as my extensive knowledge in ski area management and corporate management, as well as the work that's been done over the last few years since I've been on this commission, putting in place a business plan, getting an agreement with the delegation that we were not going to lease the property or sell the property, an agreement with the chair, Mike Sylvia, with Ray Howard, the vice chair, with Charlie St. Clair, and John Plummer, as well as Steve Nix and myself. And we've got new legislation relative to methodology that we would pay the county commission, or the county a fee of our revenues at 1.75%. Today we have the benefits of that, and I believe that that is a good reason to elect me. As far as Jade goes, I've been very impressed with her caring and passion for the resort. I believe she sincerely cares about the resort and cares about the business of the day. And the business of the day is making sure that this team here of managers have the tools and have the green light to run the business. And the rule of the board of directors is nose in, fingers out. And that's what's been working so nicely now. So I put those two motions for consideration for election. Are there any other motions for election of officers?
Am I allowed to speak at this?
Well, no, now I'm in the public.
May I make a suggestion just to keep it simple, since we're not running on tickets? Can I suggest that we have nominations and elections for each office? First chair, then vice chair, then secretary, otherwise it's going to get very confusing.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I just wanted to get my two nominations in.
Okay.
So
I'd like to nominate Peter Ness for chair.
Gotta show the meetings in.
is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
You're going to second yourself?
I don't know, unless no one else wants to second
Even
it.
with the reactions.
He'll do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Peter Ness and we have Gary Kadash nominated and seconded for chairman. Are there any other nominations? All right, let's take a vote.
Can we nominate somebody from the floor?
Let's take a vote. Peter, I know I've asked
I
you first.
wasn't going to
Peter,
run, Judge.
how do you vote?
I'll vote for myself.
Okay. David?
Peter Ness.
Gary Kadash votes for Gary Kadash. How do you vote?
Peter Ness.
Okay. Congratulations,
Boo! Another reason not to vote for Norm Silver.
All right, well, let's continue the elections. Can I hear nominations for vice chair? I've put a nomination up for Jade Wood already. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I would nominate Dr. Strang.
Okay. Comments?
I don't know why we have to have a lot of hearings. This is a decision made amongst the board of commissioners.
That
So
wasn't-
I think we can make some comments on it. I would,
would
before
call
we
that
take the
election
vote,
hearing.
I think, what?
Gary, I'll see you later. I can't talk, so it's very hard for me not to talk. So I'm going to go back and sit with my wife, Jody. Okay. Thank you, guys. It's been a short-term pleasure. Take care.
Okay, I think it's highly unusual for a first-term commissioner, and I think if we look at those records and the history of the commission, there's never been a commissioner elected to an office in their first year of service, even before you've been through a single board meeting. But you've been nominated and you've been seconded.
Excuse me, if I may, I would actually like to decline my nomination because I am also a first-term, first-year commissioner. I would like to do this because, well, I think it's the right thing to do, and also that I did wish to table this discussion until we have more eligible candidates at the table. So after the delegation has done their work to appoint a new commissioner.
So are you suggesting that after the April, when we have another new appointment?
My suggestion is that I'm declining any nomination for any office.
I mean, we will have to go through this again next month. It's what the bylaws say. I don't think the bylaws ever anticipated that we would have 2 meetings in a row where 2 new commissioners would come on board, but unfortunately, that's what they say. We're required to follow those bylaws.
So we only have one nominee now for vice chair. We might as well do a voice vote. All in favor? All opposed? Aye. Congratulations, it's your meeting to take over.
So, we do have a secretary opening, and I would nominate Commissioner Wood, although she may decline it.
I decline
Okay, all right.
for this evening.
So, we will have a Dr. Strang, de facto secretary as well. It seems to be the word of the day, the word du jour. So
I will be happy to.
So French is okay?
For this meeting. Obviously, we'll have 5 commissioners at the next meeting, and we can have this fun all over again.
So I think the next word on the agenda is financial MD&A.
Come on, Kristen.
Very well planned. This is an incredible asset for the county.
It is. Will the screen come back on?
And we have control.
Did Paula?
Don't give it away, do not. Do not give it away.
I didn't.
I saw the timeout on it happen. Nothing yet. Technical difficulties. No, when that's working, I'm gonna have to pull out my stuff.
How are you? You got out right in the nick of time. I'm good. I'm not retired. Thinking about it. More every day. How's your daughter doing?
There you go. Okay, hang on. Woo! There we go. Nice, good job.
Where does she live?
Holland.
Okay.
One in Holland, in Northampton.
Right, well, it's Madison, Massachusetts, right?
Husband.
Yeah. What's the other one's name? Oh, Jesus.
Pregnant girl.
When?
So I'm point out a few highlights. I know, obviously, the commissioners and the delegation actually have had this for a few days, so if there's any questions, we can circle back. So for fiscal February, revenue was 4.9 against a budget of 4.1. So we were 742,000 favorable to the budget and 734,000 favorable to last year. I'm going to skip down. Total company Ebitda, 3.1 million versus a budget of 2.6, 548 favorable to budget. Is that stable?
Hold it up here for a minute.
You gotta push it.
What's that?
Patrick, help us out. God, we can't run the computer, we can't run the desk.
Try and kick them into place.
What's that?
Let me just get some paper towels.
All right. You all right?
Tragedy for you.
Wait now, file 4.
The M&M, it was the weight of the candy.
What's that?
Ideal for
And it is, well, then help her both of them do it.
They're doing pretty good. Doing well, too. Looks like you're some new paper. Falling apart already.
House?
Is that right?
I think we've had all these meetings and we never did this before.
Sorry about that.
Try that again.
Yeah, let's try that again.
Do not touch the cables.
Do not, it's on the table. And this is on page, God, I can't even read, 63, page 63 of 81 for those who were following along on the paper. It might be safer. Total company Ebitda 3.1 versus 2.6, so 548 better and 509 better than budget. Peter, and you can change these formats. I usually don't speak about net income and so forth. It doesn't really have much meaning. Speak to year to date. Total revenue, 14.4 million versus a budget of 11.7. So we are 2.6 million year to date favorable to budget and 3.3 million favorable to last year. So total company Ebitda, 4.2 versus 2.0. We are up over $2 million to budget. Budget was the 2.1 is favorable and 797 favorable to last year. So that's our P&L. If we want to pause for a second, if there's any questions on the P&L, and then I'll just go to the balance sheet and cash flow.
I want to bring up a question about presentation, but I think it's more efficient for you to go through that. So
Okay.
I want to ask you a question about presentation.
Perfect. Okay, so quick snapshot of the balance sheet. So our cash position at the end of February, 7.9 million versus a budget of 2.9. We were at 5.2 last year. And we'll just talk, key things. Obviously, our deferred revenue, which is our season pass sales, 2 million versus a budget of $1.1 million. Last year, $1.6 million. And I'm gonna hop over to the cash flow, which again is just basically showing CapEx so far spent was the $1,078 versus 2.4. And basically down here, we started the year with the 5.2 ending in, my mouse over here for Tom, 7.9, again on our balance sheet. Year-to-date is the 1.1 in CapEx, and we do have, as I noted in the detail, we are still sitting with 539 in CIP, which just hasn't been converted to CapEx yet because the projects are not finished. We do have our P&Ls by department. I was not planning on going through this by department unless the commissioners feel it's necessary. Peter?
Here's what I would like to resume doing, is when I started on the commission, we used to have a report by each, let's call them department head. And for next month's meeting, if we could resume that process, I would find that helpful. And the other thing that I'd like to see is, right now we have a consolidated P&L and balance sheet. And I have a concern, and in part it's from people asking about what can Belknap County taxpayers get for a discount on a pass. And what's very challenging to understand is if we have the core operation of a ski resort, which is selling a contract right to use a lift to slide on snow, what is our financial performance for that operation separated from snow sports, rentals, food service, retail, not off-season operations, so that we can understand what our costs are and revenue is from that core business operation. So can we create a P&L that has that information in it?
We can.
So one of the real concerns that I have when I go to different ski areas is I'm not, and someone has asked me this question and I don't know the answer to it, is when you look at snowmaking, and let's assume that there's a broader palette of services there. We have snowmaking, grooming, and in the context of a terrain park, a massive amount of snow, literally sometimes 10 or 15 feet tall. How much does that cost to create, groom, and maintain all of those features in the terrain park? Do we know that answer?
We are being able to ascertain that now because we started checking it this season, and we also have the snow rate system that tells us how much depth we have.
So do you know Bob Ackland? He used to be the manager at Sugarboat. He sells operational software, and I was wondering.
Bye-bye.
Is this the same software he's been
Right,
trying to
it's
sell?
software developed by Europeans, and he sells stuff on lift maintenance, grooming. Since he was in GM and Sugarbush, I thought he was brought up across. And that's the kind of stuff he sells, and I don't know where the grooming software that we have came from, because it must have GPS mapping in it to do dry land unless you have snowpack to get based.
Yes, I mean, we'll talk about the value of the amount of money that's being spent on terrain parks.
Right. That would be very helpful. Okay. So, Kathy, if you're comfortable with what you showed us, I think we're all very happy. And what's more impressive is when you look at that balance sheet, and the fact that if you look at cash and cash equivalents, I think the number's about 8.5 or 8.6.
Yes, it is.
So,
So,
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
I'm in a meeting, don't worry about it.
Bye-bye, Rusty. Bye-bye.
With the department, you want the department head, the people that are sitting in the meeting, what are they supposed to be writing up for a, I guess, a description of what they're.
When you can go back and look, I'm sure I have them in my files. It was right when we started, the old process was having Pete Weber, for instance, would say, this is what's going on in snow sports, this is what we did last month. And then all of that went away. And so I think it would be helpful for the commissioners to know what, from the people who run those departments, what is going on a monthly basis.
Okay. I actually stopped doing it because they spent a lot of time filling out things that kind of didn't say, there was a whole lot of fluff really more than anything else.
Well, then maybe we should discuss what kind of metrics we should be looking at to gauge success or non-success. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
But we pretty much do daily sales and labor reports, so we can see what each department is doing, both labor and revenue, on a daily basis. So we can pretty much monitor what our success is or what we need to change.
Okay.
We don't wait for a month P&L, we do it daily. So that's out there, which we'd be happy to share on a daily basis if need be. But certainly that's something that we're tracking constantly, and I don't think it was being obviously tracked that closely before. So I think that's probably why we're seeing the results that we're seeing, which will show you, actually it'd probably be more interesting to show the 6-year forecast. But if there's a different metric that you think can track things better, we can certainly discuss that with what you think would be better than the daily sales and labor report.
I'm not disputing daily sales and labor report. I'm wondering if there are other metrics that we should be looking at that we may not make. But I don't know what metrics are. Yes.
Peter, you know I sit on a lot of boards and I've managed a lot of companies as CEO. And we need to make sure as a board or commissioners, whatever we call ourselves, that we don't create a burden to management, that we are helping management, guiding them. And we put together a business plan, an annual operating plan. We put together a budget. They put together a budget with us. We agree on the budget. The budget is the guardrails. And we set goals together. And if those goals are being met or exceeded, then the role of the board is to support them to continue doing what they're doing. If they're missing the numbers and failing miserably, and we're not able to provide goods and services like Vail Resorts isn't able to do right now, then the board's role is to jump in and say, what's going on? What are you doing wrong? And go dive in like what you're recommending. But with an organization that is organized to be lean and effective, which this one is, and I don't think anybody that runs a business could look at these financials and say there is a single problem with it. You questioned the financials last year and the audit came through without a single note. So there isn't a single thing wrong with the way we're accounting, and the numbers are proving themselves. Good God, we almost get $9 million of cash.
Peter, if we can just show you something here to give you an idea that we're pretty much tracking.
So let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
So what I beg of you is that you don't put in place policies and procedures, because we're meeting every month. This is unusual. Normally you would meet on a quarter like this, but we're meeting with these people every single month. And to have them prepare for the effect of like a full board meeting, that amount of material, it's going to take days, not hours, for them to prepare it. We have a lead organization. We don't want to build it up with assistant CFOs and assistant department managers to be able to do the paperwork for the board. I've been on companies that the board did that, and the companies were underperforming, and when we pulled the board back, then the managers were able to run and go. When you see that they're failing, jump in as deep as you want to, but when they're not failing, as a matter of practice, we should not be doing that.
All right, so I'm not disagreeing with you about that practice. What I am vehemently disagreeing with you is the use of the collective pronouns we, because for the last 18 months, there has been selective sharing of information amongst the commissioners, and some of us have not received material financial information. And you're shaking your head.
Absolutely
and yet
not true, Peter.
We had a vote that was unanimous on March 1st that 2 things that are on the agenda are going to be ceased until we're given the information we asked for.
Peter, every commissioner gets the full financials, everything.
But let's stop that discussion right now.
Well, you're the one that brought it up.
So I appreciate what Tom and Kathy are doing. I asked a question, and I would like to move on.
Yeah, can I speak, since
Yeah.
it's not we, it's really me who prepares all this? Let us, so, to everybody's point, there's a, and again, I think we're kind of tired of the noise. We're tired of the transparency questions, that's why I encourage everybody to come here. We don't need to, secretly send out what our legal fees are, or what, just ask. We're here. I've been here, just ask us, we can answer a lot of questions, save a lot of time. I think what we can do is our accounting department is 1. So what I don't want to do is spend a lot of time satisfying paper. But what we'll do is we'll sit down, we do a lot of work. We do a lot of study, we do a lot of analysis. To the commissioners, you don't see all that, right? Because that's why we are here. So we're doing that. We're going through that. We'll work on providing some, additional information, right? I mean, and I understand, Tom, if this was a normal company or a company, it's hard for me to come here because I have to download everything I possibly want on a USB instead of just being in our office, right? And opening stuff up and going through stuff and spending 6 hours having a budget discussion. We can't do that because of this uniqueness, right? So let us come back with some things. We did eliminate the department managers because it was painful what they wrote. It was painful. That's not what they do. That's just, the lift guy to write, I open the lifts. I mean, and that's what the report said. So let us get useful data, parts of it, which is what you're asking.
Right.
Recap that, and you can be, this is great, can I have a little more here? This is, whatever. But we're certainly none of us want to be here for 8 hours a meeting to go through the in-depth stuff that we have to do every day. So let us come back to that. I thought the reports we were doing were useless because of what it read, how it read. It was just like, yeah, we hit budget. We didn't hit budget. There wasn't any substance because we have those conversations every day. We will provide you, with everybody has a different way of how they look at the business. So let us come back with a few things. Let us present it. See if that answers it. I mean, we are, just keep in mind, next month is, we're heading into year end. We're heading into budget. We're heading into audit. So we can only get so many things done. I don't want to overcommit. But we will get some other stuff done. And again, we need to have so be it business discussions about budgets and about all that pieces and have that flow, which we've done. So we just need to start kind of piecing that together and getting everybody up to speed so everybody understands what's in these numbers, what goes into those numbers. There's nothing, and again, we have a budget. We operate within the confinement or the deliverables, and we make decisions every day. And the commissioners have to believe, and we're showing you on a monthly that we're making those decisions. Those decisions are leading to success. And point out, what, this didn't work, this is why we're not doing it anymore. This worked, this is why we're going to put more money in that. So, I'd like for us to move to that level of, and make use of these meetings, in a financial way.
Yeah.
You have the floor. And this hopefully will be my last comment on this. The paradigm shift that occurred over the last 3 years, and since you've been on the commission, and it's unfortunate you missed a few meetings that some of these things were discussed. But the paradigm shift here is that we are looking at, the management company is now looking at contribution margin by department. They were able to identify categories, businesses that we were in that didn't have a contribution margin. And you understand contribution margin is the revenue for that specific item, like for example, the coaster. If the coaster had labor and operating expenses that exceeded the revenue that came in just for the coaster, it has no contribution margin. And there were many things that didn't have contribution margin that I would call was busy work. It complicated the organization. It required that extra labor that produced a loss, as well as complicated the overall size of the enterprise to account for all that business that wasn't generating income. So even right down to the what is it called, the zip line, running it only 4 days a week, so we only lose money 4 days a week rather than 7 days a week, was a good business decision. It was part of the plan. It's what Tom and his group put together. So now that department doesn't have an operating loss as big as it did before. That's why these numbers look so good. It's not simply just new business and whatnot, but it's also the management. And I would urge, don't break success. Don't fix what isn't broken. Because if you take this to an auditing firm and say, is this a good and reasonable way to account and report and manage this business? I guarantee you there will not be an auditing firm in the country that will say, this is improperly in any way being accounted for, managed, and reported. So I would encourage you not to burden the management team with unnecessary work.
No, I think what I'm asking, and then I'll recognize Dr. Strang, is that there's a fundamental presentation issue where what's called an expense categories like snowmaking, maintenance, etc., they're unbundled from the primary revenue stream, which is lift ticket sales. And so what I'd like to see to understand the performance of the core resort business is what does it cost for that business, okay, versus snow sports. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you and I could do that in 5 minutes with these numbers right here, because we can look at the cost centers, but it's hard to do it exactly because you've got trail maintenance in the summertime. Brushing, remember when you first came on the commission, the trails were grown in 30%. I walked on the mountain with you and I pointed that out to you. We had the goggle slappers, remember that?
No, I understand.
Okay, so trail maintenance in the summertime is necessary to generate lift revenue in the wintertime. So you've got all of these various cost centers which produce no direct income, they produce direct costs. They're identified. We know what those are. They know what the trail cutback is that we weren't doing before, and they're doing it. So I can't speak more highly about, and you have to understand where I come from on this. And I sit on 4 boards now, from $1 billion down to $50 million. And this one's rapidly becoming one of the bigger ones. That the methodologies that they're using for accounting and reporting to us on a monthly basis is more than adequate, and we shouldn't have to. If you want some verbiage and you want somebody to stand up and say, well, we did this, well, we did that, I think if the numbers were bad, I'd be looking for that. Why are the numbers so bad? So I cede to Dr. Strang.
Kathy, these numbers are really very impressive, and I think all the Gunstock employees ought to be thanked for their contribution to be this far in the black, even before season's end. Those are really impressive numbers. I talked with Tom a little bit last week about what his thoughts were as to why we're so far in the black, and I know there's some people in this room who think that it's all COVID related, that people are coming to the mountain because of COVID. I don't think that's it. I think that's part of it, but I don't think that's all of it. So I was wondering, from your CFO perspective, why do you think we're doing so well this year?
Well, let's just talk, so.
Yeah, let me interrupt.
Let's go
You
for this.
guys need to look at this,
Okay, but I wanted her perspective from the
Yeah.
CFO.
Well-
I have yours as a GM, but
So
I just was curious.
I'll go through this and then add kind of some of my own commentary. And I'll just back up for a second and to Peter's point. So we also have, so you're saying a combined P&L right now, year to date. We have, and again, it just depends how long we want to be here and how long we want to go, but we'll go through this because I want transparency. Me of all people, I can't hear that word anymore. I can't. So I just want everybody to follow along and understand. So we have a P&L, winter operations, right? So we're tracking winter. So it's not in year to date. We have a summer, which we consider May through October. Here's our summer. And yes, there's grooming. Guys are here in the summer because they're getting the trails ready for summer. So it's in the summer P&L, but it's part of the winter. And those are intelligent conversations I think we can all follow along and get everybody up to speed. I mean, we've got 2 new, we're gonna have, or 2, 3, maybe 2, whatever, to get everybody up to speed. But I think this speaks, to Gary's point, to our point, just to see. So we just put up here 6 years actual and where we think we're gonna be at the end of this year. So in 2016, we did 8.7 million. Now, I don't wanna be here all night to explain why that was then, and I'm sure you guys don't wanna be here all night either. But 8.7 million in revenue to 18,042. And to answer the question, so in fiscal 21, we did 14 million because it was COVID. Well, I guess we're COVID plus now because we did 18 million. And 18 million, it's staggering. From the CFO, it is staggering to see that we're 14 million. Tom and I were like, we'll do, the budget was 14.5. And we were like, oh my God, how are we ever gonna get to 14.5? Everything's gonna return to normal, so forth and so on, and there's reasons. But I'm gonna repeat it, 18 million is where we are today. And yes, the staff, the people, we're 20% below our labor. People are working hard. We're raising the bar. And Tom and I talk about, we were given, so I came here October of 2018. It's like dog years, but October of 18. And, we had Greg gave us a gem, a little gem. And since we've been here, Tom joined in fiscal 20, we keep tweaking it, to your point. We keep tweaking it. We're cutting off the dead weight, cutting off the things that aren't working, focusing on the things that are working. And there's no aha. It's not like, oh, yep, we did that and boom. It's every day tweaking and adjusting and having a great product. We're all reading the articles about who isn't doing what and all the lines and so we're making decisions. We've been making decisions knowing that we have a gift here. And to keep it, to protect it. The first thing I was asked, in 2018 is the RAN, stop the RAN, be self-sufficient. That's, unfortunately we have to run it as a business. I know everybody hates that word. But it is a business. Whatever else we're gonna call it, that's fine. But we are here to operate the business, to generate as much cash and to be self-sufficient. And by removing the stuff that doesn't make any money and removing the bodies, we're the first group. So we didn't get any PPP money, right? Because we're government. We didn't get PPP. Everybody else did. We did layoffs. It was very uncomfortable. Thank God the government was supplementing income. Or we would have lost those people forever, so we were lucky. That we were able to keep them and bring them back. We made the decision, we were all sitting here, we made the decision to close for summer because it was COVID. We got why, how come you shouldn't, whatever, we did. We had our reasons, we had our financial reasons, and it was successful, it was the right decision. Last year we chose, we're only gonna open 4 days. Why? Because we're maximizing revenue. There's many days we're open and there's nobody here. And we've got, a full staff. So we've been tweaking the little diamond, I call it a diamond? I did. or Jeff, I can't remember, and identifying that, and people are responding. People are, and Robin can talk, our season pass sales are growing and growing and growing because people like what we're doing, they like the product, they like the friendliness, our scores, all that stuff. But, I mean, this, you know, we haven't even shared this with our team. We're gonna do that Friday, right? But again, 8 million to 18 million. That's where we are today.
If you look at all of those 7 fiscal years, the biggest jump is between fiscal year 21 and projected 2022. That's a $4 million increase. That's the largest increase in absolute value and also on a percentage basis.
Right.
So can you focus in on just 1 or 2 things? I know you use tweaking, but are there 1 or 2 things we can say this really made a difference of $4 million? Yeah?
So I think it's just consistent deliverables. It also has that we set limits on tickets. We set limits on season passes. I mean, no other ski resort said, I'm not taking any more money. They took as much money as they could, and they're now suffering the consequences of that. So there's a lot of decisions that we made, you know, in 21 and 22 to kind of shut the business off, and like everybody knows, I mean, you go to a restaurant who's got a line, right? The restaurant across the street probably has better food, but you don't go there because there's no line. We're doing the same thing. We're creating that spark, that intrigue, that desire. I don't want to go off track, but the dev team product. So last year, we didn't put the dev team product on until November. We put it on March 15th, or I don't know, whatever date it is. It's like 50% already sold out. So these are the things, and Tom has you know, preached this. It's getting the pre-committed sales early so you can continue to spend money and make business decisions to capture them while they're here. And it's just, it is changing things. I mean, we did $600,000 for Stockade, Cobble. We'll talk about Stockade, but Cobble, we did 900. Now, you would have never thought, I don't know how we could get that many more people, but we did. But how we
Compared to
year. We tweaked the menu, we sped up the lines, we, you know, so it's just keep, and when we hit those early numbers in our deliverables, in our season passes, in our tickets, you talk about flow through, you know, how much is it costing us? You know, at that point, we're getting, you know, 20% to the bottom when we hit our break evens, and that's why you're seeing this in the profitability. 90% of that flows to the bottom, and I'm just gonna scroll down. This is, I can do it when I look at that screen. This is our bread and butter, right? This is our cash. Ebitda is our cash. So we had 636 Ebitda in 16, and we have 5.4 million Ebitda. So that shows you when we cover our costs and we manage those costs, so we're not, you know, we're not sitting and going, oh, I hope 1,800 people show up today. We're like, close it at 1,400, that's all we need. And again, because they're having a good experience. I mean, right now, how far are we ahead of year over year on season passes?
We are about 260,000, which equates to about 600 passes.
And how many of those are new pass holders?
30%.
30%.
See, I think what Kathy is trying to tell you is that what we do is that we get the entire senior team and the management team to participate with us and try to examine how we run the business better. And you can obviously see that that made a difference. And we look at everything that we spend money on, and we look at everything that we sell, and we decide how we're going to tweak it. So we decided that we would eliminate all discounts, and I've said this before at these meetings. So we eliminated all discounts, and it's your effective ticket price, is what your margin is on your ticket. You only need that to go up $5 or $6 or $7 or $8 when you sell 60 or 65,000 tickets. Our revenue per skier visit, we wanted to maximize that. So we looked at all those things that each one of the supervisors and the managers, and I know some of these guys are sitting in here now, we asked them, you know, what do we do and what can we do to do things better? Everybody, the frontline guys know what's going on, the management guys, the work those guys know what's going on, So what we did is we just looked at every little thing that we had and said, how can we make more money on this and eliminate, as Kathy said, the stuff that just didn't make any money? And this was a diamond in the rough, and we polished that diamond. And that's why you should know that all these people with the daily sales and labor report, I can't talk about that enough. Every one of our departments, yes, can you pull it up? Every one of our departments knows what's going on every day. And these managers come and talk about it. And they say, hey, wait a minute, how come my revenue's down here? Because look at what I did. Well, yeah, my labor's up, but I did twice what I did for revenue. So it's a group effort to be able to manage our business, and that's what I preach. And the pre-committed sales is a huge thing, because no matter what your winter does, you've got money in the bank. And your season pass sales were huge for us. We were $1.4 million over last year's season pass sales. That insulates you from that problem. And the cash that we've got in the bank now, my goal here when I got here was not to ever ask for another ramp, because I didn't see why we couldn't run the business well enough that we didn't have to go borrow money to operate. Well, we basically did it in the second year. We borrowed $1 million, we never touched it, we haven't asked since, and we won't need to, because we've got ourselves money in the bank that can help us handle a bad winter, if we have a bad winter. But we react to those things. And I can't say enough about these senior guys and the managers that are out here. They get it. They get the idea of how much it costs to run these places. They understand that a snowcat costs $450,000 and we spend $1 million in snowmaking. They get it all, so they help us to be able to achieve those results. Those results didn't come out of me walking in the door and 2 years later we're making another $4 million than we did before. Those came out of everybody knowing how you have to run the business. It's 13 weeks and you can't screw up. And this is a daily sales and labor report that I talked to you about. And this is what our staff sees every day. And we talk about it, we have a meeting we call the Breakfast Club. Every other week, all the managers are in there. They get incentivized. It's based on safety, financial performance, and some other metrics that we talk about, miss punches, that type of stuff that causes us problems. And each one of these departments is highlighted. It's got the actual, it's got the budget, unfavorable, prior year, and then week to date, and then year to date. So they know where they stand. That's how we got there. We got everybody involved in understanding how the business runs, and that's what they got a hold of. And guess what? Everybody likes playing for a winning team.
And Tom, you're right. You've generated enough income to get through a bad year. And the bad years don't get as bad as they used to be because you got great snowmaking now, and you can make a lot of snow over a short period of time. But you've made enough money now that you can put money in the bank, in reserve, to pay cash for improvements. And as was said at the December 4th meeting, resorts that invest in their infrastructure thrive. Those that don't. And we have an opportunity now with this business model that is in place and is proven. This is a proven business model for this four-season resort, that it can make money. It can make, what percentage of Ebitda are you going to make this year? 19 or 20?
Oh, 20.
It's 27.5.
Last year was 29, so it'll be 27.
Yeah.
How many business people in this room have a business that they're invested in that makes a 27% Ebitda? They're usually around 8 or 9 and they're struggling. Believe me, I know this. I buy and sell businesses. So a 29% Ebitda in a seasonal, weather-dependent business, highly competitive, with a competitor that's out of control with cheap passes, is just absolutely crazy extraordinary. And it's a tribute to the business model that is in place, that you now have as the Belknap County owners of this property are blessed with having this in your possession and executing. So we can get through a bad year. We can start investing cash into, if that $18 million pod for the eastern slope or eastern basin or whatever you're going to call it, Tom. If it's $18 million, a good slug of that can be paid with cash out of the bank. We should be very happy with that.
I'm sorry, excuse me. May I please just briefly have the floor? We've all said a lot of things here. You said a lot of things, obviously. I would just like to get it into the record and recognize that this gem that was inherited was extremely successful because of the loyal employees that you said, thank God there were government subsidies to what lean monies they did receive, and oh, thank God we got this gem. Well, really the people of Belknap County and beyond who came back and decided to continue to be employed by the mountain and work hard to respond to these bi-weekly meetings. I want to make sure that they know and that you recognize them. As you say, you've had such a successful year. We saw the bonuses last year go out. Please keep them in mind, because they're the real gem.
Yeah,
And they
It's-
can-
We all know it takes a village. It takes a village. So, again, this is stuff, we don't want to bring this every day because there's important stuff here we don't want, to be out every day. We just don't. So we're not sharing it. We're just trying to consolidate it like any business to protect it. If we need to have a section or we say, hey, can we spend the next GAC meeting talking about X? We can bring as much data as we need to talk about X. Everybody gets comfortable with it. We kind of check that box. We go to the next thing. And that's just, and this goes through, for everybody just to,
We just repeated, you were asking about the metrics.
Yeah, I just wanna-
We can't track it anymore.
we budget, by day, how many season pass people are coming in, how many ticket people are coming in, how many, rentals do we have, how many, all of this stuff is worked through with the departments. We set a budget, we track it, we hold everybody accountable, and then we talk, why are we hitting here, why aren't we hitting here, what do we need to do, how do we change? And, the employees are bought into this, the managers understand it. Don't mind this was, what day was this? What day was today? So this was like Wednesday, so that's why there's a lot of zeros. It's late March at this point. But we still had 200 skier visits. So these are the reports, and we have a lot of other stuff. I don't know, whatever the governmental rules and stuff, I think we can have one person come in, one of you at a time, however that works, you can answer that, to get more in-depth and to get exposed to more stuff, so you're more, educated in the business, to ask questions and stuff. So whatever those rules are, let's figure them out, so we can go through more of this.
Go on the
That's it, I can't do it that way. So, as we had talked, let me go to year-to-date.
So this is effective ticket price, basically the margin on the tickets. And this is where we actual and what we budget, and then the prior year. That's a huge difference financially, to be able to get that much more money on a ticket. And then we also take a look at revenue per skier, but scroll down to revenue per skier.
$76 to 63.
Yeah, so that's how much money people spend when they're at the skier. So we budgeted 79, the prior year was 63. And that can change a little bit, it depends on what this and this kind of tickets and stuff like that. But those are the things that we looked at, that we knew we had the opportunity. And it's this is a unique, you can't do a lot of this with that. I brought the DSL with me because we did it at my prior job, and it was a huge tool. But Gunstock's kind of unique with the way it's laid out. So we can do a bunch of things that you couldn't do somewhere else. You couldn't do it at the place I worked at before you. Being able to limit the ticket sales based on where we can park the cars, all these things that we put into place, you can do it here. You can't necessarily do it everywhere. So that's what we looked at. We looked at what can we do at Gunstock that no one else can do that's going to make us more successful. And we got a lot of things we can do here you couldn't do anywhere else. And we recognize that. And we kicked ass.
So your total resort per visit, is that what I've heard is daily yield? That what would call that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And and the funny thing is people notice it. Like someday you'll have if you have for some reason you have a school group and the margins are lower, all of a sudden the ETP goes down, and everyone's like, what's going on with the ETP? You know, well, we had some comp tickets because there was a, you know, special grouping or something like that we did. So, but people, the staff knows that, and there's a bunch of these guys out here now, and they roll their eyes at me a lot of times when I'm talking about some of these things in the meetings, and I agree. I roll my eyes sometimes too, and Kathy talks about it. That's why I wear sunglasses when I'm talking about it. But that's how we've done it, and it's a team thing. I can't say it enough that everybody got into it, and we got a unique spot here to do these things. Enough of it.
So we will continue, and like I said, I think as we work together and go through some stuff, and I think if you one of you or two of you or whatever
Yeah,
that
like
is.
what are the rules? Like, can 2 people come in? Is that okay? Or
Yeah, I think we should probably look at that.
Right, and, because it is, I can't bring my whole computer here.
And we'd rather sit one-on-one and have the discussions.
And to be honest with you, even if we had 3 commissioners, if they're there just listening, receiving information, that's not a violation of 91A. As long as we're not discussing things and say, okay, we'll agree to do this, that's an actual meeting where you have to notice that to the public. But if we're just sitting there listening to a conversation of the managers to understand what they're discussing and what kind of information they possess, I don't think you need to have a concern that 91A is violated because 3 or more showed up to listen.
Well, like I said, we'll leave that, you guys tell us what, and we'll tell you when.
Then you can ask some questions. And that's what we do, you know, we'll spend a day at the end of the year with all the senior guys talking about what can we do to make, what do we need to tweak to be able to make some more money. And we'll talk about that a little bit, some of the, so yeah, we're excited to be able to share the knowledge. And I know we keep hearing that, I don't know where, but there wasn't enough, that once again, Kathy said the word transparency, which I don't know what that is, but we're very transparent, and it's easier to talk to you guys in my office than it is in a room like this.
Well, plus we can pull up.
Yeah, we got
Files
access to
and
files that
bounce
we show you
around.
how we track all this stuff.
To everything. And I shut it off, but if you notice on the right of that thing, it said just winter. You know, because we speak winter, we speak summer. So that's, and a lot of that will come to as we get ready to present the budget. We'll speak summer, winter, total.
And we were talking budget today, Kathy had so many files open, she couldn't figure out where a couple of them were.
Well, you need a really, really big screen.
I got 3, and it's not enough. I need like 5, but I need a bigger
I had
desk.
made her hang one on the wall so that I couldn't keep it over hers. You'll see that. It's my special one.
So if we could move kind of past, we talked about February, we kind of gave a snapshot of, you know, where I can't look at the screen and click, where we're gonna end up. And I'll just go, you know, just to all the county people here. Last year, I'm not here to debate, but last year we gave it 247, that was our rule. This year we think it's gonna be 360. So just good news that we're, you know, able to, because of our revenue, we're giving more to the county. So we'll look forward to that as well. So move past February unless, and I know we kind of got off sidetrack, but to get into the other stuff, if there's any questions about February's performance numbers.
Just question, on that line you have highlighted for fiscal year 18, 19, and 20, was there no money given to the county or just nothing entered on this?
Correct, well, Mike can probably, so it got, I don't want to misspeak here, but it got like, it ran out and then it took a few years to come to an agreement. Or
It was
whatever.
negotiated.
Yeah, so we didn't have a payment due because there wasn't an agreement, so it stopped. And then they made,
Well, Kathy, there was an agreement, but the formula of that agreement didn't make it so any money flowed to the county. And that's what the meeting in January and February 2019 with the chair and Howard and St. Clair to establish the 1.75% off the top, so there was no issues as to how the money flowed down through.
I mean, it's always, you always want it off of the revenue because then it gets into debate on Ebitda, is that a CapEx, is that R&M? We don't need to have those discussions, so off the top and simplify, but that's why there was no payment, so that's why it's 0.
Okay.
Okay.
Good?
That's good?
Good?
So I think we've gone through MD&A on financial performance.
Yeah.
Comprehensively. So I believe the next item on the business is 6, old business, and there's 3 things on there, all of which were really subject to votes on the March 1st special meeting. And we voted to have a moratorium on that activity until members of the commission were provided with information. And so I think we should defer any discussion on those items until we get the information that we asked for.
So,
I guess, could we clarify? I mean, so we weren't at that meeting, so for clarification, and I didn't memorize the motion, it's really not my job. But my understanding was it was to freeze fiscal '22 because information wasn't provided. The budget was approved in, fiscal '22's budget was approved in April of '21. 2 commissioners weren't there and weren't part of the budget approval. We're now saying in month 11 and 12 to stop CapEx because it wasn't shared with the commissioners, but 2 of the commissioners weren't even there, so I'm a little confused. And hopefully you guys can clarify that.
I think there's a dispute as to what was shared and what the detail of that was.
Right,
So-
but that, I mean, so we had 5 commissioners, there was, I don't know, whatever the votes were and stuff like that, but I'm just confused that that information would not have been provided to 2 of the commissioners. So the vote was 3-0 or 3-1 not to spend, and 2 of the commissioners wouldn't have been given the information because they weren't here.
So let me ask a simple question.
Yeah.
There was 1 point something that has been spent thus far in out of 2.4. The concern is, we didn't, and I'm using that collective pronoun, we did not get the detail on that. Because one of the things that we did not get the detail on was the Stockade Lodge improvement project. And I'm asking for these 2 commissioners to agree with me to give us the detail on what was the proposal of the 2.4.
Peter, I'm sorry to have to beg with you to tip you, but the minutes don't support what you're saying. And the budget was approved 4-0. We weren't there. And the Stockade Lodge, you brought it up after the budget was approved, and it had the Stockade Lodge in it. The Stockade Lodge is mentioned in the capital, and it was approved. And I think
And I'm going to have to stop you right there, because this revisionist history that keeps occurring needs to stop. There are 2 members of the delegation that are in the audience that agree that the 2.4 was never discussed at that meeting. So I'm asking a question which is simple. There was something flashed on a screen, and then in a second, that had 4 categories that said 2.4 million, and then after the fact, we heard, oh, well, we're going to do this. And that was never disclosed. So we've asked a question, there was a vote. No, you can shake your head all you want. We would like to know what is the 2.4?
Okay,
What are the elements?
So, and again, I just want to talk about business, whatever word we are, but business. So, yeah, so at April's budget meeting, we did roll up the CapEx. And it spoke, and whatever questions, I don't remember what questions, I don't have the minutes handy, but whatever questions, we're doing this, this, and this, here are the revenue things, whatever, so it was rolled up, and then we were, and then, again, we're not gun-shy sharing with the public, we're gun-shy sharing with our competitors, right? So I think maybe some of that's been misinterpreted. It's our job to protect the business, so we may demonstrate that in a way that we're not supplying the information, but we really just want to protect Gunstock, right? Because we love it. So we presented the 2.4. We did have it in like 3 or 4 categories: infrastructure, growth, whatever those were. It was approved. We did at other meetings. There were questions from the audience. Where's the detail? Where's the detail? We kind of did explain why we didn't want to, but we ended up doing it in August. So in August, no, I don't want that one, hang on. Again, to Tom's point, too many files. Too many files. In August, we did provide this at the GAC meeting. So here was our, here's everything. Oh, thing squeezed in. Ooh. Oh, and if we can read that. So there's our 2.4, which we talked about. Get over there. So we broke it down in categories. You can debate those. I don't want to debate those.
Let me just put something in there too. If you look at what we're spending for capital, so not everything has an ROI. Like we remodeled the bathrooms because we listened to our guests and they said on our NPS scores your bathrooms look like they came from the 70s, and they did. So rather than just put better toilet paper in, we remodeled the bathrooms. Greasy old parking lot. As I said before, we limit our ticket sales by the number of cars we can park in our lot without going to Alpine Ridge. So we took out a number of campsites and we built the parking lot. Now, is there an ROI on that? Technically, yes, because if we're getting $72 per car and there's 2.5 people per car, there's an ROI on that. But ultimately, we knew we needed more parking because we also were going to add more tickets. So the Pan addition, at the top, Panorama Pub, that does $150,000, $140,000 of revenue every year, and it's the size of this table here. So there's an ROI on that, but you can't make any more money there. A well at the top, you gotta put a well up there because we're doing it. Now Stockade, that's the question, I'm gonna scoot by that. The campground, we do a bunch of, where we try to put $150,000 on the campground every year, it generates $500,000 worth of revenue, and nothing's been done with it, so we need to add more sites. The rental shop, $200,000, we built a new building. Is there an ROI on that? Well, we certainly pushed a lot of skis through now because you're not down in that cellar all the time, and you've got an experience where they're coming out on the top of the snow, and the snow sports people are visible rather than struggling to get up the Eiger to get there in their rental cruise. E-bikes, we looked at that, wasn't really working. PK makeover, so we take some of the stuff and we end up eliminating it, and you'll see. But the culvert project, that's a rental skis. There's a return on that for sure, but every year you've got to buy rental skis. Snow tracking, that's that snow right system I talked about that Dan came up with, our Dan Cavanaugh was rooming and snowmaking supervisor who's sitting in the audience tonight, so I'm going to talk really nice about him. We had to do, we put the snow right system in and measure the depth of the snow. Is there an ROI on that? Absolutely, because we can tell when we should shut down on snowmaking or not. The snowmaking, we always put in about $300,000 because everything we do is making us faster, better, and more economic, more environment friendly, and mobile vehicles. You got to go buy backhoes and trucks and stuff like that. So you can see the only thing there that really has a total ROI is the Stockade, which we can go into right now with the Stockade ROI. Other than that, we move things around. Like we'll say we want to do 2.4 million because, as Kathy would say, it's an appreciation. But then as we get going through things, we go, well, that's not going to work, so we're going to move this over here. So the capital, when we do it in April, kind of like we've got a ballpark number here now, but the capital, when we do it in April, we're kind of shooting a little bit, kind of making some shots of what we think we need to do. Then we refine it as we get along through the summer months.
Right, so this was in August. We presented this slide. And we revised it because we knew more information. We're making these things come March, and then all sorts of things happen or our downloads, and we're changing. And again, as running the business, we stay within our limit of 2.4 million because that's what was approved. Now, if we all of a sudden were like, hey, there's this thing we need, and here's we need 2.8, we then bring that and say we want to spend 400 more, but we do move in the buckets because we can't get this, we can't do that, this is going to cost more. So this was at our August meeting.
Can I really interrupt you for a second? Because I don't want anybody to misunderstand. This was revised in August.
Correct.
Because we had gone through the summer and knew what we would be spending. The 2.4 was approved in the budget This was the capital budget. Those were the line items that was presented and approved with the AOP, annual operating plan, in the budget that Michael and wherever you are, Ray, saw all of this. You sat there, it was right in front of you, and it was in the packets. So it was in the budget. And in the August meeting, and you had brought this up, where was the money? I didn't ever see the Stockade Lodge. How come that got in here? I never heard about it. And this was brought up and revised in August when we had to increase it because we found that it was going to cost more.
So there's two lines, and I'm in April, we presented a summary. We presented a summary. And we talked about 3 or 4 things or whatever that we called out. We certainly didn't get into the minutia that we have here. But we wanted to show it because it had come up. And then, you know, at that point, we had already revised it. So I just want to quickly kind of talk about CapEx. There's 2 buckets for CapEx as a CFO, what we do. You have to maintain your infrastructure, you usually spend at least your annual depreciation. So our annual depreciation is about $1.8 million. So we've already kind of always have that number in our head, give or take $1.8 million-ish. You know, and then we add to that, what's going to make more money? How are we going to get to 18 million, right? We're doing different things to keep pushing that. So that's what we do. You know, we have to spend $1.8 million-ish to fix things, to make things better, to, you know, no one notices the bathrooms and no one says the bathrooms, but they only, like anything, they only complain when they look awful. Nobody's going to be like, oh my God, best bathrooms, you know, ever.
Gunstock has always had,
Right,
honestly, the cleanest bathrooms
Yeah.
of any ski area in New Hampshire, and the nicest, I don't know, the ladies' room or the men's room, the mitten or glove things are they're like handcrafted from Leeds, New Hampshire crafts.
We don't have those in our ladies' rooms.
I have
You've got my attention
Now
now.
we're going to the real.
So I just want to clarify, we presented a summary in April, right? We presented the summary, it was approved, we had talked about different pieces, whoever was in those meetings or whatever, you know, so we readdressed it, we provided the original, then the revised, and that's where we are, so I'll go to here. So we are, oh God, through March now, you know, I don't know, $1,700,000-ish at CapEx, plus I got, you know, whatever, $1 million, I can't speak to March right now, I can't go that far, but we're close to the 2.4 if you add in what I've got hung up in CIP. So from a cash basis, from an accounting basis, I'm only gonna recognize $1.8 million. I'm gonna carry over $500,000 in CIP. So our budget was 2.4, CapEx is gonna say 1.8, but we really spend 2.4 because it's tied up from cash. You know, so those are the things we're doing. I'm gonna open up, we'll talk about the Stockade ROI, right? Because again, those are conversations we have to validate is it of value. So I'll get a little my background. I was the CFO for restaurant chains for 20 years. And part of that, who cares, I don't want to say my age, so I'm not gonna go that far back. So I do kind of have a little love for restaurants. I unwillingly volunteered, I think it was Gary, to take over food and beverage, which is another part of my job in addition to, on Saturday, you'll see me in the Stockade, handing out pizzas and stuff. It's part of my CFO role as well. The Stockade, so what that is, if anyone goes to the mountain, we have this beautiful main-on-main building that's closed almost every day. It's just, if you've been in there too, you don't even know if it's open because it seems closed. So I was always dumbfounded why we had this unbelievable, and main-on-main to me, you know, a location, main-on-main, and it was closed or it was occupied by crock pots and bags and just making no money, and we never had enough seating, and so we had the...
And if you compare it to the PK, the views out of that building, everywhere you look, is ski areas, tubing hill. It's the nicest building on the mountain. That's where the base lodge should be. but we never got any use out of it because it was just people, like you said.
Right, it had become a
Locker room.
locker room, thank you. So we've been talking, I've been talking about the stockade since like 2019. We need to put a restaurant in here, we need to put a restaurant in here. You know, we've got to get to the point where it makes sense, we have the money, we can make the investment. So we went through all that. And truly, when we're talking about 6, 7, 800,000, I know it doesn't seem like a big deal. I mean, to us, how do I word that? But we go through the gymnastics. We may not speak to the crowd about ROIs and IRR and, you know, all that stuff, which I have, you know, but we didn't. You know, it's more like we have a building that's closed. That's shameful, number one. People can't get in it. There's nothing in it. They don't even know what to do with it. So hence the desire to do something with that and make more money.
And we have 2-hour waits to public game on Saturdays and Sundays.
So we did.
But when you say put a restaurant in there, you mean get rid of the ability for skiers to go in?
No, so just talking about the food court.
And go out on, or are you talking about improving the restaurant portion of what's there?
Well, so, you know, backtrack on the COVID. So, right, so we don't allow bags in any of our food areas. You have to go downstairs, bag check, all that stuff. So,
which is another reason that our revenues are so high in food and beverage.
So again, we only did 600,000. I don't want to bounce around, but we did 600,000 fiscal 20 in the cobble, because half the time you couldn't sit down anywhere because there were bags everywhere. You know, it's just, it doesn't work like that. We need to make money. So we got free bag check. People love it. We cleared out the restaurants. People are so much happier that they come in, they buy their food, they have a tray, and they actually find a place to sit, because there's nothing worse when you have your tray.
And that increased our food and beverage revenues. A lot of places charge for bag check. We said, why charge? Because we can tell them they have to put it downstairs.
Well, my question is, are you talking about removing the ability for skiers to go in and gear up in the stockade?
Yes, but you haven't been able to go in there for 2 years. 2 to 3 years that you have not been able to do it. But yes.
Because I'm hearing from skiers, we don't want to see that happen. We want to be able to use the lodge. And here's why. I mean, every time that I would go over there to train when we have that ability, you gear up and you walk right out and there's the lift right there. As opposed to gearing up in the main lodge and now you got to trudge all the way up the hill. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
I can do it as an expert skier, but beginners are not going to want to do that. You're going to have to put a magic carpet in to get them up to the lifts,
well,
and that's
the
a whole
beginners
other
are
expense.
going to change because they don't know it exists. But you know, it's once again, it's how we're trying to maximize our square footage with a limited amount of square footage that we have for food and beverage to utilize that well. I can tell you that it's not that much of a trudge to get to where you're going to a Gunstock, because it's a lot different than many other skiers to walk to and from, but we can make some money there when we show you the ROI. And we want you guys to understand, we don't spend money unless we've done an ROI on it, and we know we're gonna make money. And I think that's fairly obvious by how we've increased our revenues.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, I mean, and I know, you know, just like, why did you take that off the menu? Well, we took it off the menu because it didn't sell, but it was important to one person. I've stood at the stockade for 4 years. The amount of people and the specifics of who hung out there is different than our entire guest expectations versus the 2% who, you know, want this versus the 98% who want to eat, want to sit down, want to have a beer, want a atmosphere that we believe the stockade provides. And, you know, we can have many conversations of other options, you know, that other ski resorts are doing for those people, because we have made a major change post-COVID of what the customer person does, and how much don't like it and how much like it.
But Kathy, you've proven through your new business model that you can control the base lodge clutter of dirty clothes, smelly boot bags, smelly footwear in the base lodge where you're trying to serve a meal. And that's capacity is being handled in the historic base lodge in the basement area. correct?
Yeah.
So the stockade, the intent of the stockade was to make it a restaurant, not a gear-up facility, a gearing-up facility. So that when people are skiing and they're breaking for lunch, they're not having to walk all the way to the main road, which we hope they still do, but they can also click out of their skis right there at the stockade and go in. And especially at night, for night skiing, that this becomes very close to the night skiing, where they don't want to walk all the way to the lodge, where it will have a very high beverage revenue, like at many ski areas. So I think, I'm not sure that we want to drag this on too far, going into the details of what the minute little details of the operation are. I think we need to trust management to tell us that they needed to turn to a higher revenue facility. And you're concerned about people being able to go in there and change into ski gear and ski boots and stuff like that, then let's have that as a discussion with them as to if there's need for that, or if the people can still do it in the base lodge.
And we've got more ideas coming, you know, what to do, what we can do, what works, and so on and so on. But I think that's kind of another day. So there's an ROI here. I mean, there's many things here. I've hopped ahead just because, so the stockade didn't get done in fiscal '22. We did order some equipment. Half the equipment didn't come in. We've got POs out there for the rest of it. It's kind of a little bit of everywhere right now. But in our initial, so we were at I don't know, whatever. It was like 650,000 or 675, whatever the number was. It's now 9 for the stockade, of which we've already out of pocket spent 204,000, and we already have stuff that we wrote purchase orders from September. That's already out there. So I just want to kind of talk about this, and we can debate some of the other pieces. So because of what we went through, what we discovered, they're included in this number now is if we leave it the way it is, and we still have to do about $300-ish thousand worth of work, because there's some issues.
Compliance.
There's some compliance issues. You know, we kind of historically kind of just add stuff, and maybe we don't look at it in its totality until later.
As all skiers.
Yes. So we've discovered some things, even if we were to leave it, we have to fix now that we've discovered it.
So like hypothetically speaking, ADA.
ADA,
Some weight bearing
electrical,
things,
plumbing.
So regardless of what we do with the stockade
Right,
lodge,
we're
we
gonna
have to
spend
do
money.
these upgrades or maintenance issues.
Yes, we do have to get it to here now because we've looked at some stuff. So that's why that's gone from, I don't know, I think it was 675, whatever the two, there was 2 lines on the back, and pull it up if we need to find out, but when I presented it last year, or fiscal '22, there was 2 lines. One was equipment, and one was kind of the leasehold improvement. So we're here now at 900 because of what else has to be done. We're just gonna encapsulate it in the project and make it all have that. So $900,000. This is the Ebitda for 10 years. You don't really go out after 10 years, because after 10 years, you probably need a new dish machine, you need a new whatever, things have to be fixed. So we are projecting the stockade would make, from a cash flow basis, $1.9 million over 10 years, which is probably conservative. I like to be conservative when I'm spending money. And it's gonna cost $900. So what does that mean? That means it's a 5-year payback. And again, Peter, I don't know how far we want to get into this, but we'll keep it simple. So the net present value of that investment, from what we would make over 10 years to what it would cost to bring it in terms to now, that discount rate, just to explain discount rate, and I certainly don't want to spend an investment course here, but the discount rate is usually, you can look at it 2 ways. What the stockholders want for a return. I want 10% return, I want a 15% return, whatever that would be. Or, look at the other way, what do we borrow at?
Which is cost of capital.
Right, cost of capital. So actually, our last bond was 2.75, I put 3. Obviously, the market now is even more favorable, but that's it. And obviously, as you change these numbers, the whole spreadsheet changes, right? So we've got, conservatively, it would make $1.9 million in Ebitda. It would cost us 900. It's a 5-year or less payback. We're comfortable with that. We've talked about it. We've gone through various aspects of it. A third of that has to be spent anyway, goes back to the 600. So here's the return. Here's what we talked through. These are the numbers we use. And again, a lot of our stuff we don't really do in ROI because it just has to be done. So this is something we would be presenting as we get through 23's CapEx and everything, but we're kind of in a situation right now where the horse and the cart are kind of backwards. We got the cart now and no horse because of the freeze, and we're spending in March, we're spending 23's CapEx already. So I guess one could question, how are you doing that when your 23 budget isn't approved yet? But we have to. We have to start spending money, and again, we operate within, that 1/8 kind of number depreciation, and then what we do forward. Go ahead, Gary.
Kathy, I don't think I can stand it anymore, I'm sorry, but let me point something out here. In fiscal year 19, under Center Plate, where we leased out our food and beverage business for a 5-year period, with the stockade operating, we had earnings. Our licensing fee was $425,000. In fiscal year 22, without the stockade, they produced $750,000 year to date, and you still have a month to go. That's almost double what we had when we leased it. So the point being that food and beverage is a very, very important mix of our business, as we've said many times over, to take the singular burden off the lift ticket. We can't rely just on the lift ticket to cash flow everything. So it's very important, and maybe I'm jumping forward, and I'll make a motion, because we're talking about, I hope, next the capital freeze, make a motion that on the stockade capital, that we release that capital so that they can go forward and finish the work so that we have this for next year. It's a good investment for our shareholders. And if you like, Mr. Chairman, I'll make that a motion.
Before we get to that point, can I ask, can you separate out those required upgrades that you were talking about?
Sure.
So that we see what needs to be done regardless of what we do with that building, and those expenses that would be necessary to turn this into a restaurant? Because again, what I'm hearing from people who know I'm a commissioner now is, I don't want to see the Stockade Lodge go away as a place where I can go and gear up. So I'd like to have a discussion as to, are we absolutely committed to taking that away from the users of the mountain, and the only way you can use the Stockade Lodge is to go in and buy food and drink, or is there some leeway on that?
So yes, but we've already spent $204,000, and we've already have committed to another whatever, 175, because the fiscal 22 budget was approved. So if now we're saying in fiscal 23 we don't want to do the stockade, then we have $400,000 of equipment and work that's been done to sell, but to return, I can't return it.
But some of this is equipment we don't even have yet, right?
But it's already been it's committed, it's being made, it's in that. They have an authorization to go ahead and spec out, and
have we paid for it yet?
we've paid 2/3 of it.
Okay.
So we're in, and again, this was 22, we decided to do it. The only reason we're talking about it now is because we couldn't get it done because of COVID and supply chain issues. So we're committed. we're not changing, it's still gonna be a lodge, and we haven't yet had the conversation of what you can do in there, what you can't do. We'll continue to share that information as we work through it. You know, it's gonna be open in the morning, you can come in, like you do.
That's what I would like to
You know,
get
so-
into.
right.
Yeah, because
So,
I'm not a fan
understand,
of wasting money that we've already committed
Right, we've already
our
spent
assets to, but if there's a way of
$400,000
sort of meeting
of this.
the investment objectives of Gunstock as well as the...
Our
the-
guests are very important, that's how we
Yeah,
got to 18
absolutely.
million.
You know, if we could say, look, you know, it's not going to be available every day, but certain days, yes, and, you know, certain hours of certain days, yes, then
And we
that
know
might be
that
a good compromise that we're looking for.
because we live it. You know, we're there 12, 14-hour days every day, so
So,
we know
and
that.
I think Dr. Strang has
It's a
reached
pigsty.
a good point. is We need to have this what the, let's call them the compliance or deferred CapEx, whatever expense you want to call it. What's the restaurant component? Where are we in spending for both of those buckets? And then I think we need to have that information and then be able to ask questions, because I've talked with this, about this issue with Wood, is we need to understand how that impacts the guest experience of what Dr. Strang is talking about, because that lodge is there and people are used to it, and that's what we need to understand.
And
Okay, I mean, when you talk about the guest experience, right now, there's a 2-hour wait to get into the powder keg, because people want to sit down and have a waitress service dinner, lunch, and that's what Stockade would be. So the overall guest experience is going to impact a whole lot more people than the 20 people that don't like to do it up in the lodge, walk along that nice walkway we have, that pretty much dumps you at the bottom of the pan. There's more people negatively impacted by the Stockade not being a sit-down dining restaurant than there is by the people that want to go in there and change their ski boots and get out on the hills and slopes. So when you talk about the guest experience, there's a lot more people being affected by that not being what we want it to be than the people that don't change their boots.
Yeah, Peter,
Now,
I
we
think,
can-
I
we
think
can get into
this,
this.
Peter, I think this falls into the category that every board, thank you, micromanagement, but falls into the category of nose in, fingers out. If you want to go back to just a general manager and hire some guy at $50,000 a year to go up there and do what you think you're trying to do here, that you know better than these people do, because with all due respect, Peter, I don't see on your resume or David's resume, or even my resume, the experience that these two have and what they're doing and what the management team is doing. We are not the people that are elected to run the business. We're elected to help manage, make sure that management puts in place a good business plan, make sure that they put in an annual operating plan, make sure that they account for them correctly. And trust me, they're accounted for correctly here. That's our job, not to decide where somebody's going to be able to put a bag, or whether we're going to have a restaurant or whatnot. And if there's an hour-long wait to get into the pistol, then that's a lost opportunity, and we need to. I'm going to go back to this. This is starting to feel like a delegation meeting in the nursing home.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree, Gary, because I have people coming to me and saying, I don't want to see the Stockade Lodge go away. And what you're telling me is that my job is to tell them, shut up, go away, you don't have any say in this matter. And I'm saying that my job as a commissioner is to listen to our constituents, because we are government representatives of these people, like it or not. We are elected by the county delegation, which means that we are representatives of the people. And I think it's very arrogant to tell them, well, we're going to make the decision. In fact, the commissioners aren't even going to make the decision. We're going to just defer to what the mountain wants to do.
David,
It's something like this. So I think we do have a right to ask for information and to want to participate in a discussion. That's what we're asking to do. And what I'm hearing from you is butt out stop asking questions, just do what the mountain wants to do. And I don't like that.
Can we just like?
Are there any motions that need to be made
So-
tonight relative to
Yes, so-
the freeze so that we don't have to call another special meeting? I have thick skin, but I don't enjoy being called names over having a special meeting short.
So let me hop to fiscal '23, and again, we're a little now, because we've been told to stop, we're stuck, you know, and I just wanna, I'm gonna open '23. And again, we're a little, we're kinda not in the right order, but at this point, and we'll show you why, is because, and this year has been really odd. We don't usually finish our April with $500,000-$600,000 in CIP, because usually our projects are done. But we've already started, you know, and again, where does the CapEx list come from? It comes from what we thought we were gonna get done, what we didn't get done, what we just realized we have to get done. So we already have this, you know, this is already in motion. So there's, you know, the kind of, here's everything that we'll be kind of presenting and stuff. So you know, you saw this. Here's the pyramid addition where we need to get that. There's the well. There's the campground. There's the PK. So we're already spending money for fiscal '23 because we're acting in the same parameters that we've done year over year. You know, we have to start spending money in February, like we knew we had to have our special meeting for the AC because we have to put deposits. So we're making commitments in January for '23 because we have to, or it's not going to get done. So this is just to kind of show you what we're already in motion because we had to be. So everything that is a star is something we've already committed to, or in, you know, we have to finish Breezy Knoll. I think we got piles of dirt and whatever isn't finished. The culvert dam, I mean, this is actually something from, I don't know, FEMA back in 2016, 18. It's been kicked around because we haven't done it, but we have to do it. The stockade, you know, I've already, this equipment is already being sourced. It's already in production lines. The AC, as we're talking about pre the March meeting, we agreed we're going to do AC. We've got to do a deposit. We need to move. We have to place the order the end of this month. March-ish for rentals.
April 1st.
April 1st.
Yeah.
So we have to be allowed to do certain things. Now, yeah, we say we're gonna, you know, we don't spend all of it before the year, but this stuff, it has to be in motion now. You know, we've already ordered, you know, we've got their old expired computers that are no longer in compliance or whatever I know, at least I'm not using the right word, but that's okay. So our concern is we are now, because of this freeze, we cannot proceed with fiscal '23. And I know I guess it's hard for me to explain too, like, you know, you can't approve '23 until '23, but we're always spending the next year's money or making commitments in the prior year because we look at a 3-year plan, not just 12 months. So we're already in play, so I don't know with this freeze how you want to address this, because it will impact everything we do for summer and for next winter.
And we don't even know what the supply chain issues are for this thing. I mean, with the backhoe, we knew we ordered it because we knew if we didn't get it ordered, we wouldn't have it until August. And we needed the piece of equipment. And so all these things, like, you guys, you gotta help us here. We gotta get rolling on stuff because we need to get things here. We have a short little window before we gotta be ready for the winter again. And it's just tough getting everything done and getting ready and getting things in place. And we didn't even get our snowboards until when? 65 of them didn't come in until
Just a couple, 3 weeks ago.
and that's a supply chain issue. But we were running out of snowboards, especially with our outreach programs. So we gotta, you know, I don't know how we got here with the freeze and what it is, but we're not indiscriminate spenders. We're doing things to be able to get the business stronger and move ahead and keep doing what we're doing with our revenue increasing. And we gotta be able to roll with this stuff. We can't be sitting here, we can't buy stuff and this and that. Hang on a second, Gary.
Yeah.
So I need to, you guys gotta help us with this, because we've never run into this before. And you can tell by what we're doing for revenue and how important it is to us to control spending and do what we need to do. We're not indiscriminate, we gotta get rolling, we gotta get stuff done.
When that was passed at the March 1st meeting, I actually abstained from that because the motion had a lot of requests for information that I was not part of because it predated my joining the commission. So I'm going to defer to Commissioners Wood and Ness as to what specifically they would like, because I think we need to have a compromise here. We can't have you stop the ship dead in the water and expect you to be prepared for all the work that we have to do in the off-season and then get ready for next year. So.
And I think the comment was it's a few weeks. I'm telling you, a few weeks is a lifetime. We miss, we're out. If we don't get our order, we're done. So, and again, this is why we're a business. We flex and we pull, we flex. So, in this spend, we make sure, can we pay for it? How would we pay for it? Do we get, I know we've gone down those roads, which we want to talk about. We do have a lot of cash. We do want to spend it. We want to spend it wisely. We're not going to spend it all. We're going to save it. We're going to protect it.
Everyone should know that the money that we're spending on capital is money that we have. We're not borrowing money to spend on capital. We're using the money that we've been able to.
I mean, we've got $9 million in the bank. We can pay for all of this, but I want to know from Peter and Jade as to what they think that we still need information on, and can we go forward with expending the other money so that we don't wind up shooting ourselves in the foot.
That's where this conversation started.
We'd like to resume our business as usual, and we got stopped for various reasons, but we have to protect the business. We have to move forward. We have to spend money, and yes, if we don't place an order in a week or 2 weeks, we are SOL. And again, this is always moving, and we can, we may, when we get to the budget, we may say, you know what, we're gonna pull this back to 2.5 because that's what we're comfortable with. And we don't commit everything on March 1st and spend all. It's throughout the season, but we have to keep moving. It's detrimental to what happened on March 1st to our business. It's detrimental. So we need to understand it. We have to run the business, and we need your direction on what we're doing.
Let us know what there is, other than the stockade. What other questions do you have?
Well, the first thing that we asked for, which you're showing us, I think the concern is you're showing us now, instead of 22 days ago, is this level of detail.
But we showed it in August. We showed it in August. I mean, we showed it in August. So this, we should not be talking about fiscal 22 right now.
Right,
But
and
we
now this is CapEx 23.
23. Because I've just kind of just rolled it now because we're done in the next few weeks, but I need to pay for that backhoe, or if I don't pay for it, we're gonna lose it. I need to let Robin order these skis. IT, so as much as you say stop, we've already ordered the $25,000 in computers because I did it February 1st or whatever. And we haven't done anything since your date, but we have done things that we have to continue doing those things.
Like Dan's trying to find the availability on the cannonball. We gotta replace this entire line of cannonball. It looks like Swiss cheese. But we're trying to find out what the availability is even to get that piped, and we've got to order that very quickly because everybody's doing improvements. So, yeah, we're, I don't know what you need to know, but we got to get rolling, so.
Peter, this is a very unfortunate point in time in our history. We approved these budgets. You were on the commission at the time these were approved. You were there. The minutes were available to you. The minutes were available to everybody in this room, all the delegates. These numbers were approved.
But just let us know what we need
Let
to
me-
tell
Let me
you.
finish, Tom.
Okay.
The management has done what we asked them to do. We now have a new commissioner, 2 new commissioners. We've lost a commissioner who was here before. When that happens, you don't take a 90-degree turn. You don't put the brakes on and stop everything and say, hold the show. I want to rewrite the script or understand the script better when the train's already moving. So there, as I said earlier tonight and didn't get anywhere with it, this is a point of where there needs to be a compromise or a level of trust. A level of trust that management knows what they're doing, that the delegates, the commissioners, including yourself, knew what they were doing when they approved the budget, that the numbers that Kathy is saying were presented in August were indeed presented and were indeed voted on, were indeed approved. And Mike Sylvia and Ray Howard were there when all of this was going on. That we can't now just say, okay, I don't like it, or I don't understand it, or I'm afraid of it. So I want to stop it because I'm the new guy in charge. So I'm asking,
All right, let me stop you right there.
let me finish.
Finish quickly.
So I'm asking you to accept a motion that I'd like to make to approve the budget of capital so that they can continue to run the business as was approved in the 2022 budget, correct? Will that get you through
Well,
the
again,
next week?
we haven't operated in this 12-month, we have to, a quarter before the year end, we have to start spending for the new year, that's just the way business is. So we have to figure out how you want us to do that and move forward. And truly, I know we all feel we want to, we love the commissioners, the delegation, everybody, but our job is just the business. You guys, if you need to take some of the other stuff and outside, but like if we could just stay focused on what we need to do, how we need to run the business, what information, we need to give you. But, I'd love for us to just continue to not get into politics and not get into, we just help us continue to make everybody happy and make revenue and make money and not need a RAND and be self-sufficient, because I think that's why you brought me here and that's why you brought Tom here, to do these things, and we're doing it. So how do we proceed? It truly isn't approving fiscal 23's CapEx because I haven't given it to you yet, but I need the authority to do what we do, is to continue to spend money in Q4 for Q1 and 2. So how we maneuver that and how we work through that and stuff, but just, we need to know now what we're doing so we can get back to running the business.
So let me preface this by, in the past, my experience is that some of these questions that have been asked have been denied. And I think there are members of the delegation that would concur in that observation. And so it was literally, you don't need to know that, don't ask those questions. And that's what people are objecting to. So I think what I'm hearing right now is there are orders in the pipeline that are CapEx that may be blended, if you will, between FY22 and FY23. Okay. So of those...
Plus new 23, right? Because it's your definition, and I've tried to respect the definition of what CapEx is, because truly, right now, I'm not spending CapEx. I'm placing a deposit, which is a different line item according to GAAP. So that's why we're here. I need a deposit, right? I need a deposit, but truly in my mind, that deposit leads to CapEx, so that's why we're here. A deposit isn't CapEx, but it is. So let's remove that, blurred line that we think we have to just, we have to spend the rest of 22 and some of 23 now. So what do you want us to do?
Let me ask my 2 other commissioners.
You get 3 commissioners. You can have 3.
Well, that were part of the March 1 meeting.
Well, Dr. Strang just said that he was going to defer to us, although he was satisfied enough with the information and the situation to appear at the March 11th meeting and vote on it. And so since he now is the vice chairman, I would be confident that you would at least, and I'm sure you will, do the research necessary to make a confident decision concerning whatever we're about to decide to do. And yes, of course, Commissioner Kydash is at the table as well.
Can I ask, is there anything besides the Stockade Lodge, and are we absolutely going to commit to taking that from a place where people can gear up and go to a full restaurant? It sounds like maybe a compromise there. So aside from that, is there anything else under CapEx that the two of you are, this is a question for Ness and Wood. Is there anything else under capital expenditure that you two feel that you need more information on?
From what I can see on this list, and the one that seems to be, I can understand the groomer. Cannonball is 550. And what is Cannonball?
Replacing both water and air lines all the way up and down.
Okay.
So some of it's kind of
nothing. Yes, but we've had nothing, it blew up about 10 times this year, we barely got it open, and once again. And Dave, I don't want to, with the Stockade, I probably know every one of the people that has talked to you about not being able to boot up in there, because they probably talk to me a lot. If we can get that open to be a functional restaurant, you're talking about listening to your constituents, the money that goes to the bottom line increases what you're going to pay the county, and everybody's going to benefit from that, rather than the 20 people that want to change the food stand. So I think there's two ways to look at it. You make 20 people happy, but you get more money into our revenue stream that pays more money into everyone in the Belknap County area.
Well, and Tom, it's not only about the money. When we restricted people gearing up in the second floor of the base lodge, and there would be bags. I don't know whether you were here then, but there were bags on every single table and under every single table. You couldn't find a place to put your tray down, and maybe some of the manager can back me up here. We made a decision, management made a decision that we were going to restrict bags from going to the second floor. This is something that most ski areas have done. It's something that I did. Something that I did at Stowe. There were a lot of people that came and complained about that, and were upset about it. But right now, nobody's complaining about that because it was managed right. We improved the bag program for the first floor, and the second floor is now enjoyable, and you don't have that problem. And so, if you've had 5, 10, 15, 50 people who have come to you and said, I want to be able to gear up in the Stockade, that's all part of managing a business and balancing needs with guests and doing what's right for the business and doing what's best for the majority of the
I agree, but it should be discussed with us. So that's what I'm just saying, can we have a discussion? So can I propose a compromise motion here that you can set the Stockade Lodge aside for right now, but would you other commissioners accept a motion to continue with capital expenditures at this point aside from the Stockade Lodge so that we're not encumbering the operation of the mountain?
Are you asking us or?
Well, I'm asking the commissioners.
No, and so I know where Commissioner Strang is going with this, and I think the simple answer is if you tell us, there's two buckets. There's the restaurant bucket and there's what's called the compliance bucket with Stockade. So if we segregate out the restaurant bucket because we want to talk about that, then the rest of when I look at all those line items, all of them make sense. And this is on FY23.
Yes.
Okay? Right? I know a groomer costs $400,000. If you need, I don't know what the useful life of snowmaking pipes are. They seem to last exceptionally long, but they must blow up because I've seen them blow up.
Yeah, this one's blowing up quite a bit.
Yeah, like the one that was underneath or where exit 21 is, that did it like 4 years ago, right?
It
Yeah,
looked
we got a
like
little
the
sinkhole.
escapades.
We have a little sinkhole there.
Cannonball is the oldest pipe on the mountain,
Yeah.
over 20 years.
So all of those, when I look at those things, those all make sense. But I've never seen this detail, and I never saw that detail for 22. Okay?
We did show it, somehow you missed it, but, you know,
So I would second Dr. Strang's motion to proviso that we segregate out the restaurant component of the Stockade Lodge, because we need to understand that.
Do we have a discussion on that? Tom,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
is there a way to put some type of a boot storage
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
bag
We can
up there and have a boot storage
Outside.
somewhere
Yeah,
at
outside.
Stockade?
Outside.
Outside? It would be outside?
Yeah, so
But are
we're
you
just
wanting
kinda-
people to be able to undress and dress and get in your race suits and everything in that
I
building?
think that's going to require more discussion than we have tonight. It's already 8:30, so I'm looking for a way to move forward with capital expenditures, and we can find another time to
Yeah, well, I agree.
discuss
We
the
can- we can think about
specifics of
Stockade.
the
Let's keep
Stockade
rolling.
Lodge.
But wait a minute, Stockade is one of your top priorities, because it's a critical thing, and you're talking about not doing Stockade.
But we've
no.
already spent $400,000. I've already spent it, so
Right.
that's a moot point.
Right.
What we will continue to do, because we have to, we will continue moving forward with what we want to do, you know, we haven't, you know, can we line up the contractor for, you know, 8:15, you know, so there's other stuff we're gonna continue to do, that isn't spending money, it's our time. We'll continue to do that because we have to, or we'll miss that window. We can talk about this again in April, and break out some components and move forward, but, you know, and find a solution, and again, I probably have seen the 25 people who hang out there, versus the hundreds of people who want to eat there and get a beer and hang out at night and stuff, so yes, I already spent 400 grand, so that's a moot point to talk about. What we do with the design element, we can talk more, we'll bring in the boards and the drawing and to kick it, you know, whatever we want to do, but we're gonna kind of still move forward because we have to on these things, but we're not spending any more money yet for construction, so we don't need you to vote on that today. But everything else, we have to move forward.
So to go back to my earlier motion, is we unfreeze capital, excluding Stockade.
Well, that's what my motion was.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And we have a second.
Second. Do we have a vote now?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
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 Strang? 4 to 9. Approved.
We all.
They didn't put freeze on the 23 and more freeze. The 23 has an improvement. The freeze is on 22. They spent the freeze on 22.
So they're gonna basically show up. They have this hair thrown into the kitchen. Also along.
Master
plan.
Okay.
Well, that's another one.
So I really, given that it's 8:30, and the master plan, people have asked me, I'm sure they've asked other commissioners, what is the plan? Sometimes there's a map or a drawing or an architectural rendering, sometimes there's slides. We have asked for somehow something in writing of this is what it means, whether it's 3 pages long or 5 pages long or something, along with some dollar numbers for us to get a grasp of what is being proposed in each one of these 5 cases. And some of them may never occur because they involve real property issues.
Right.
And some of them, or all of them, may never occur because there's other legal constraints that have yet to be addressed. So as a simple, because we, the commission, in my opinion, need to see some kind of document of what is the proposal other than a bunch of slides that have some numbers attached to them.
We agree, 100%. And I think that we said all along while we were talking about it, that this is a potential plan that we're trying to utilize the terrain that we had available to make some improvements. And we had never, other than what I gave to Dave, what the kind of ballpark numbers are for what it costs to clear trails, what it costs to put somebody in pipe in, and what a lift costs. We can and have done, we've done an ROI on what it's gonna cost to do it, but we haven't gotten into the detail of what do we need, how many more ski visits do we need to do? What does it mean on our season pass holders? And everything we do be conservative, because you can't pay for any kind of capital improvement, and I've made this perfectly clear all along, unless it's fiscally responsible, because we like being on a winning team, and we don't want to make improvements that aren't gonna get more people to come skiing here. We do think, judging by our limited ticket sales, and our season pass sales that we've had to cut off last year, that we've got an opportunity to do something, but we know what it's gonna cost to build East Side. We haven't looked at Weeks, and we haven't looked at Alpine Ridge, because, like you said, that's probably a lot of portable sales. We need to look and see, we can show you what we think it'll cost, but we can't back up what we think we can do, because we haven't had the time to sit there. And that's one of those day-long things when we torture all the senior people to sit down and say, what do you think? How's it gonna work? How many skier visits do we really think we can realistically do? What's our marketing plan gonna be to get them here? And that terrain, you being a skier, that terrain on the east side is pretty nice stuff. So we have an ROI on what it's gonna cost to build it. We just don't have an ROI, and we know what it's gonna cost if we should get a 20-year bond for it. We just don't know, we haven't gotten to the point where we can say, this is how we're going to generate the revenue and pay for it.
Peter, at the January 19th GAC meeting, we voted to approve the master plan in concept. And we voted to approve it so that we could move to the gating process. This is normal process of doing a major development. When you look at the full potential of business or the full potential of an operation like this, and you want to make a long-range master plan, you look at everything it could possibly be. Then you say, okay, that makes some sense. Now let's go back and see what's reasonable and feasible, and let's do the gating process where you do exactly what you're talking about, and that's exactly what we approved to do, and we're going to be doing and working on. Now, we've got a little bit distracted with capital being taken off the table, but the next steps of this plan should be to prioritize which pod comes first, what it costs to do it, we got some information on that last time, and what environmental issues are in the way, and so that we can determine which one we will move forward with first, which one's going to give us the biggest bang. It's already been presented to management that they feel that the East Basin pod is the most lucrative to go with first, and we got some preliminary numbers on that. So this is a normal course that we're going through. Nothing has been done backwards or upside down, and while I respect Dr. Strang's concern about the Weeks side of the mountain, that is so far out that we don't want to get tangled up in that before we take the obvious low-hanging fruit opportunities. So I would like us to go back to the approval of the master plan and approval of management, rather than putting the master plan on hold as it was at the last meeting that you called. And that they can move forward with this gating process as we told them to do back in January.
Yeah, we can do that. We're not spending, because Kathy and I are going to be doing it. We're not spending money to do that anyways. It's us coming up with what we think with, not well, I said Kathy and I, but this group sitting here to come up with what we know what it's going to cost, and how do we want to be able to come to you with a complete plan to say, this is what it's going to cost, this is what it's going to, how we're going to generate the revenue to do it, and this is what our plan is. We're just not there, because we were never going to be getting onto that right away anyways, because we just did this plan that was a plan, and then we were going to take the opportunity to then identify where we thought we could go with it. And there's no other, and David and I talked about that. There's the slides that we did, and then and the question is, well, they spent $71,000 and you get 15 slides. And then there's the price list that we had. It's a ballpark price list. And then those guys came multiple times and hiked around this mountain with me, doing all kinds of different stuff. There's a whole lot more than just 15 slides put together. But we now have to, we just haven't rushed off to do it because we weren't gonna be building lifts there next year, you know? And we can do that, we can get it to you, probably not by the next meeting, but the meeting after that, because we're trying to wrap up the year end, and we're trying to get budgets done. But we can do that, we just never gave it a whole lot of thought, because.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Before we get into motions,
Yes.
I'd like to just make one comment. It sounds like Commissioner Kydash has much greater knowledge of the master plan than the other commissioners do, and I think that's what's causing the holdup here. Tom, you and I have talked, and the only thing we have on this master plan, which seems like there's a push to keep it moving forward, is we have 15 PowerPoint slides, which were shown at the December 4th meeting. And then last week, you shared with me this Gunstock capital cost estimate, which the key word being estimate here. And this is everything from upgrading lifts to adding snowmaking and such. I know back in 2015, there was actually a printed document, a spiral-bound document from the SE group. And I think what we're looking for now is there any kind of a document, or if there isn't one in existence, can it be prepared, which explains in detail what these 5 pods are? And the reason why, it's not just for us, but in my conversations with the 2 conservation groups that have come out in opposition to the Weeks development, they would like to see a copy of the plans. And they want to participate in the discussion with us, but they want to see an actual detail of at least the Weeks portion of the plan, so that they can intelligently converse with us. And I think we really need to have something like that, so that we know, gee, is this a plan that we can continue? Because right now, I have to be honest with you, I don't think the Weeks plan has a snowball's chance in hell, no pun intended, of happening, and I really have a problem with approving forward motion on this entire plan when we know a component of it is really faulty. So
We don't have to approve forward motion on anything. We can go do the, I don't disagree that the week maybe a problem. We want to look at the east side, and we can do all that stuff without anything else happening. Those bound things, I can show you one from 2005, 2010, 2015, you know, then you know what?
Can we get something now that has greater detail than just the 15 PowerPoint slides in
No, because
this one-page document?
we're not there. They wouldn't prepare that. They prepared a master plan. There's nothing, we can give you what it's gonna cost for us to do it, how we're gonna generate it. I mean, there's no hidden plan, like you and I talked about. There's no hidden plan. That was done. They bound that up and they put it in the file area. They did it in 2005, they did it in 2010, they did it in 2015, and that was more buildings. There wasn't a whole lot of, planning buildings are pretty easy. This is all the buildings you ought to build because you're gonna have this many more people, and you don't have enough square footage, you don't have enough bathrooms, and no ski area does. That's what a lot of that stuff was. We used that when we were talking about it, but that's really easy to bound up a bunch of buildings than it is to take a whole master plan. So we need to focus on, look at the east side, that's where our biggest opportunity is. And the only thing we need snow engineering to tell us is, can we ski from over there back over without having to take a lift? Other than that, there's no other kind of thing.
Is there a reason why we can't come up with a 3 or 4 page document that just breaks down the 5 pods and give a description of what is to be done in each one, and maybe challenges to getting that done? Just so that we have something that we can refer to. It says, okay, you know, pod 1 is east side development. Pod 2 would be Alpine Ridge. Pod 3 would be upgrade of the Tiger Chair. Something that we can at least refer to.
Sure, I can talk to Claire and see if there's something else they can.
David, that's exactly what we talked about at the last one, but let me comment on, I agree with you that there's a very low probability that we can do the Weeks side. We've said that from the beginning. We've announced it every single time we talked about it. But it needed to be in the full potential, and because there's a possibility that it could be done. But it's such a small possibility, it has to be put at the bottom of the pile. But one of the reasons that master planning and what we're doing right now is so important is we should have been doing this 20 years ago, and we would have identified the Weeks property when it could have been bought by the county from the Weeks family rather than the town of Guilford, and it could have been designated as expandable ski terrain, and it would have made a far more successful Belknap County asset. And we missed that opportunity. Somebody was asleep at the switch, or somebody didn't have a vision. So the intent of this document here is to try to create that total vision as to what can be done. That fits in it because there used to be ski trails there, and how we ever missed it, I'll never know.
But we agree we missed it, so I
Well,
don't understand why
but
we're
that
spending
doesn't
money
mean that-
to include it in a plan
I
that
don't
really
think we
doesn't have
should
a
get-
chance to
I
go
don't think
forward.
we, I was told that I couldn't move a civilian conservation campground in Stowe in order to put a village in a certain place. And we got all the parties together, everybody that disagreed, and we found a way to make both parties win. And we haven't started that yet. We've had one meeting with the Conservation Committee. Tom was there, Brian Gallagher and I were there because we could only have 2 commissioners presenting. And so the process that you go through to get these things done takes step by step. And when you come across barriers, if it's a deal killer, you have to accept it. But if there's a possibility that you could still work something, which, as I've been told by some, well, there's ways to do that, and snow engineering or SE engineering has even said, well, we could move this a little bit here, we can move this a little bit there, and then negotiate a reasonable agreement between 2 parties to have a benefit for all involved. But that's not for, that shouldn't be for today's discussion. Today's discussion is to move forward with the most important and most obvious components of it, the most reasonable, the most feasible, the most executable right now, so we don't wind up with a situation that Tom has 10 years of master plans or 15 years of master plans sitting in a file cabinet that never get executed on.
How about we agree that we're gonna work on the east side, and that I'll get Claire to put something together for the other ones, that this is what the lists are gonna be there, and this is how the trails are gonna be, this and that, in a 4 or 5 page document. We'll have to pay. So,
Who was Claire?
sorry, Claire Humber, the girl that did the presentation, lady that did the presentation at the December 4th meeting, she's the senior planning person for SE. And like I said, I call them, and it's not like calling a lawyer, where as soon as you call them, they turn the clicker on. I call these guys, and they talk to me about all kinds of stuff, and they're not, oh, we're sending you a bill for, an hour worth of talking, because I have a huge relationship with them. But let's agree that we can just go ahead, not gonna cost any money, to develop the ROI for the east side. And then I'll get Claire to put some things together to talk about the other parts of the plan. But the east side is probably more of a reality. Now, I put a place mark in with Doppelmayr for 2 years from now for a lift, because everybody's buying, Javale keeps buying every lift that comes along. That's just a place mark. So if you guys agree, I'll get Claire to put something together, SE group to put something together that talks about each one of the pods on a, kind of a basis, really. We can work on the east side, and it isn't gonna cost any money, it doesn't mean we're gonna go do it, no one's approving anything. It's a potential plan. We'll go work on it, what it costs, what we're gonna do, how we're gonna market it. Kristen, you've gotta make sure you add 100,000 ski visits, good luck. And so, if you guys, we'll just go do it.
Can I ask why we would want to make that the first priority, adding something that's not there, as opposed to upgrading the Tiger Chair, which is an existing asset, which I think we all agree is aging and needs replacement?
Yeah,
Why
well, I
are we
mean,
looking at that first?
we can do that. That's not, like, I thought you guys would know more about the master plan. The Tiger Chair, that's still kind of on the list.
Well, but you said that was one of the components of the master plan, so I'm saying, why aren't we focusing on upgrading that? Because we know we got to do that at some point. Why not make that priority 1, get in line for lifts, because you're saying that that's an issue with Vail and other resorts. Why not make that priority 1, and then we can look at the east side for part 2?
I'm in line for a list. I'm just in line for that. We can do that. That's part of the master plan, but that doesn't change anything. We can put that lift in you know.
Well, but it means the difference between just replacing what's there versus maybe extending it further up if you want to get secondary access to the top
Well, that's a
beyond
little tough
panorama.
to do. We've tried to
So
figure out ways
that's
to
a
do
big
that.
discussion that we have to have, so, you know, I'm suggesting maybe that ought to be priority one, and then we can look at east side as priority two.
Look, saves us a lot of time.
Right, I think what David is asking for is, let's call it an executive summary. Is it 5 pages, or is it 10 pages, or is it a drawing with a page per pod? I don't know. But I think what we're looking for are salient details so that we can look at that and get an understanding so that we can then have a discussion. That's
Okay.
what we're looking for.
Define.
Very well said. Because again, we're not looking at saying, we're not doing any of this, we're looking at having a
Yep.
discussion.
We can
And saying, okay, this doesn't look possible, but the other ones do, let's try and prioritize them. We're just
Yeah.
looking for more information,
Fine.
so.
Like I said, we kind of thought it was,
Start over.
once we did that December 4th meeting, we went on running the ski area, and we could easily do that. We're not in, you know, we weren't gonna go building this.
So I think you also have to determine the size of the bang. If you replace Tiger, what does it get you? Will it bring more skier visits versus if you did put your investment in the East Basin, which would open the possibility for other development?
Well, I think as we look at what it costs us to do the East Basin, we can then, the East Side, we can then look at what a $5 million detached quad might do for us getting up a hill. But you also have to look at how much money you're gonna spend to keep Tiger and Airmark running, and all that kind of stuff. So we can do all that stuff. It's not a big deal, and we can do it in a time frame that fits our schedule, because we're, you know, in a little bit of a pinch now, getting things ready.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be, you know, anything comprehensive. I just would like sort of
No, I get what you- I get
a
what
general
you're saying.
outline so that we know what we're talking about, so.
I get what you're saying. I've eaten that
I
most
think it
of
will
my
help
muscle
further the
crunch bar
process.
now, ready to go. So, yeah, we get it.
So do we need a motion to do that, or are we in
So-
agreement?
I think the motion is to free up capital to move forward. Because if you've got capital frozen and you're throwing,
Yeah, I'm confused because Tom has offered to do something for nothing, in essence, because he's not calling a lawyer for every successful for an accountant. So what he's going to do is produce, let's call it an executive summary of, these are the elements or the constituent parts of the master plan with what they mean, so that we can have a discussion. Is that what we just
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about? Okay. So,
We will resume.
And didn't we already make a motion?
yeah, we did, I apologize, I'm sorry. I had a brain fart.
So we have a motion that you're going to give us an executive summary. Do we need to vote on that? Okay,
Yes, I will.
all right. So we're now at 10 of 9. There's a whole parking lot discussion, which, yeah, if we can defer that. I don't really understand, there was a notion presented that somehow there had to be a unanimous vote by the commission, according to the other commission. This is at
I think you
March-
said in your email that we had to have all 5 commissioners vote on the parking lot.
Peter, would you like to maybe
Sure.
make any comments on the parking lot?
Yes, happy to, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Commissioners requested unanimous consent on the acceptance of the $1.3 million appropriation that the county commissioners have decided to appropriate to Gunstock for the construction of the parking lot, paving the unpaved area now, and also to pay off the HVAC upgrade that was, I believe, already in the process of being completed, as I understand. And the request for unanimity was to try and foster some cooperation among all 5 commissioners to pull in the same direction and get this done in time for the summer of 2022. But seeing as how we are missing a commissioner for the moment, it's probably best to table that until after April 12th.
I think that's appropriate.
I agree with that.
So we can park the parking lot?
Yeah.
All right, so down actually to new business. So, given the late hour and the fact that we would like some information coming on the master plan, can we defer the area operating, annual operating plan?
Yes.
All right.
You guys want to vote on that?
We need to have a vote to table something?
No, I was kidding, with you.
All right, so there is one other thing that I would like to bring up, is under the bylaws, actually Article 2, Paragraph 3A, the chair has a commission to form committees and staff them. And there are two that I would like to form or authorize tonight. And the first one, given the amount of legal services that have been consumed by the commission or the area or both in the last year, I would like to form a, let's call it a legal services committee, that we are able to understand who represents and provides legal services to Gunstock or the commission. And I think at some point, we may need to retain counsel to help us understand some of those relationships. So, as the chair, I can form that committee. I would ask that Commissioner Wood and Commissioner Strang join that committee so that we can understand what has happened with legal counsel. And I would like to have a motion where the commission authorizes the committee to review the current representation of the resort and the commission, in case they're different, by legal counsel. And if it's determined that assistance by legal counsel, that would be outside counsel, to evaluate current representation is required, the commission authorizes the GAC chair to engage legal counsel to assist in this evaluation of legal matters. That's a motion.
Second.
So we can have a vote now, unless there's a discussion.
I have no desire to sit on that committee, although I do look forward to reviewing your findings at
Okay.
public meetings.
All right, so noted.
Can I hear the motion again?
The commission hereby authorizes the legal services to review the current representation of the resort and the commission by outside legal counsel. And if it is determined that assistance by outside legal counsel to evaluate the current representation is required, the commission hereby authorizes the GAC chair to engage outside legal counsel to assist in this evaluation of legal matters.
Thank you.
Okay, so if that is, if there's any further discussion,
I think it's unnecessary, but
all right, so can we have a vote? Commissioner Wood?
No.
Haddad?
no.
Strang?
Yes.
Ness? Yes, so it fails. All right. At least the motion. I would also like to set up a commission, or a committee, excuse me, to review snow sports operations. And
What?
you're welcome.
This
and-
is so much a personal vendetta and agenda of yours, it's so far out of line.
Right,
Let's
yeah.
discuss it during the discussion.
So, all I'm saying is that I'm going to establish a committee where the commission examines snow sports operations, and I will leave it at that. Okay?
Well, I am vehemently opposed to that. You have, since the moment I met you, you have had an agenda about ski school. You've had an agenda about your software. You've had an agenda about your dismissal from ski school.
And you have an agenda about defamatory statements and lying to the public consistently.
No.
So if you want to increase the size of the judgment someone may get against you, I advise you stop now.
No.
What I'm talking about is how many people are in the ski school, which is a service business. The ski industry has had flat skiers and riders for 3 decades, and I have asked questions for over 18 months on how many people are in the ski school and what do the numbers look like? And the answer was always no. So I am now forming a committee to investigate what is going on in ski school.
Can I just say, I have no idea where this is going. I'm a new commissioner here, but I don't appreciate the personal attack. You actually just violated Part 3 of your own code of ethics, which requires a commissioner to refrain from abusive contact, personal charges, or verbal attacks on each other. So I would like that to stop. I have no idea where Peter's going with this, but I think the motion ought to be discussed as a motion, and
It's
not
actually-
be used to attack other commissioners.
I don't need to have a motion. It's the chair's authority under the bylaws to form a committee to discuss things. So all I'm getting is notice that we're gonna have a committee to talk about snow sports.
Who's going to be in committee?
I haven't decided yet. We'll decide by April 13th, perhaps.
Ask your buddies from Williams.
So why are we targeting one revenue center? Why don't we have a committee to look at all revenue centers?
Because I spent a decade of my life teaching skiing at Gunstock. And I have certain observations that I've made, and I want to understand what's going on, because I understand what goes on at other ski areas. And it's a fundamental part of the ski industry is to teach people how to ski and ride.
Which is what we're doing, and we're beating budgets doing it. So I'm personally can't believe that you're even bringing it up, because the person that's running snow sports says 3 decades running snow sports. And I realize that you're a level 3 instructor, and that's great, but I can't believe that you're picking on one revenue source to take a look at when it's doing very well and it's teaching. We taught 2,000 lessons to outreach program kids this year.
Tom, the questions I'm asking, I've asked for over 18 months, and they've all been ignored. And so I will resubmit them to you in writing, and I expect them to be answered. They're very simple metrics. I want that information.
Sure.
All right? So
So it's you and I. Okay?
with
Well-
that, I would like to make a motion to close the meeting.
I would actually like to add to the discussion, if
Oh,
I
all right.
may. As a ski instructor myself, if I can be helpful just in the area of obtaining information, not potentially sitting on this committee, as I think we should perhaps table this discussion, and whoever would be participating in the committee, it's your right to form one. But you mentioned the Breakfast Club meetings, and I would be more than willing to sit in on those and overhear insights from all of your revenue centers, not just, of course, snow sports instruction, but if there's anything that I can do to sort of disarm this and facilitate information between departments and you, then I will happily do that.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to sit in on the Breakfast Club meetings.
Just before you go to next, the only thing I wanted to bring up was the email addresses, just to update where we are. So the commissioners will be receiving an email tomorrow as far as how to access, how to log in, how to do your everything. So that will be coming to your personal, whatever we have on file. That'll be coming to you, I think, tomorrow. So it'll be self-explanatory if there's any questions, but that is ready to go. So we'll send that out to everybody.
And bone up on your cybersecurity skills, because I flunked about 3 of those tests already.
Did you need a second to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Public comment.
Public comment.
Public comment. All right, can we set a limit on this?
You want to leave it out?
Well, all right, so let's open the floor to public comment.
I am going to be very brief, unlike most of you. Ruth Larson from Alton. I hope, Mr. Ness, that you will bone up on your skills of running a meeting. This was a disgrace to have everybody sitting here for this long, with the 2 of you going on and on with all your complaints. You talk about your constituents. You, Dr. Strang, voted in 9 members of the delegation. You were not voted in by the public. We're all watching you. We're all hoping to be proven wrong on how divisive you will turn out to be. But instead, the 2 of you have repeatedly talked about, we'd like to do this with the two other of you, excluding
Some
the
respect,
one
please.
remaining commissioner, that you
Yeah.
are obviously not letting, not. We would
Not talking
appreciate
over
it
you.
if you would stop doing that and try to work cooperatively. When Mr. Kadash offered the compromise about Rusty McLear, that wasn't even considered. It was such a mild thing to do, and you two could not even see your way to doing it. And it's not appreciated.
Ruth, violating the law is not a mild thing to do. It's not a compromise. The law is what the law is, and you as a lawyer should know that.
Thank you, Mrs. Howard.
You're welcome.
Applause. Speaking of lawyers, it's really kind of ironic to repeatedly during these meetings see the lawyer, Mr. Ness, asking the doctor, Dr. Strang, about procedure.
Another amen.
Thank you, Ms. Strang.
Peter, how about you tell everyone about your history at Loon?
My history at Loon?
Yeah.
Next.
Yes, ma'am.
May I speak? Hi, my name's, oh, I'm sorry.
You
Which
may go
man were
first.
you pointing to?
I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't see you.
All right,
Saw the
you
woman
can
in
go
the second
first.
row.
My name is Lois Kesson. I'm from Laconia. I have been skiing at Gunstock, actually Belknap, since 1953.
Yeah.
So I have, since 53 to 2020, when we closed all the buildings for COVID, I have brought my equipment in. I have dressed in lodges, and I think now I am very happy to dress in my car and go up the mountain, and I do not need the stockade to get dressed in. I would like to know, how many people, Dr. Strang, that you think you have that care. Most mountains don't have it. I have humped up the roads of Bridger Bowl without being able to dress enough. And Park City and Alpine in California, you just aren't allowed to do it. And I think that we really need to have that revenue, and I'm really sorry that you did not vote to continue the restaurant right now.
Spell your last name, please.
Kessin.
Yes, ma'am, in the third row.
Hi. My name is Kathy Dahl, and I'm a grateful skier of Gunstock Mountain. I just want to thank all of you for a super year. Anyone out here who works at the mountain, it's been amazing. The grooming has been exceptional. I've been up there 33 mornings this year skiing.
Awesome.
And my family first came here in the 70s skiing, and it's just a remarkable place for families and families.
I actually want to add to that. I have people from my friend Sammy Blanchard's become a musician up here. He's really been thriving. He's at 4 or 5 this Friday if anyone's interested to hear some tunes. But he has been just astonished Tom and Pat and Dan about how amazing the snow and how manageable Gunstock has been on a Sunday, and how he's just really enjoyed and fell in love with skiing at Gunstock, and how this team and all you guys have put in a lot of hard work and effort to make the last 2 seasons really remarkable in a COVID struggle. Nice work, everybody.
Amen.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Doug Lambert. I just pulled a couple of quotes out from the discussion tonight. Mr. Kaidash, you said, "Don't fix what isn't broken." Kathy said, "We have a great product." Somebody who I didn't know said, "We have a little diamond." The season pass business is growing, and at the last meeting, I believe I commented on that you have created a product that is in very much demand. It's like an ideal business model when you're selling something that so many people want, that you have the ability to close it off and still turn a profit. and I applaud that. I think it works well. And I really think that that's something that should be focused on like a laser. So you've created a demand with a desirable product. And the question I have is why the desire to grow? If we're turning such a profit, I mean, the profit is enormous, okay? I don't understand why you can't look at the mountain and then say, what do we need to maintain this level of profitability? When you look at new lifts, new runs, which I'm all, you know, I love to ski, don't get me wrong. But what we have works. And I think that we're in a situation with the finances that you could make a long-range plan to replace and maintain the current structure and operation to maintain the level of profitability and to be able to afford it in a way and pay for it in a way that continues to provide value for the county and can be done in a fiscally sound manner without spending money on studies or talking about doing things on property that we don't even own. And, you know, Mr. Kaidash, the people of Guilford voted to preserve that land. Now, I don't think that the people of Guilford really would want to look back and say, we wish we didn't preserve the land. I mean, it's a nice blend, and that's part of what Gunstock is all about. It's not just the ski area, it's the beautiful land around it. I happen to use that area in all 4 seasons. Okay, so we focus on the skiing and we have to be able to pay for things. But there's 3 other seasons, and there's people that use the land in the back of the Weeks property. They use it for other things other than skiing. We talk about people that can't afford to ski or don't want to ski. There's 64,000 residents in Belknap County. And to just, this whole plan of bigger and bigger, everybody says, we don't want to privatize it. We don't want the big corporate thing going on. We don't want to be Sunapee with miles of traffic up the road waiting to get in there. And I agree with that. I live in Guilford. I also ski at Gunstock. And I'm not sure that I want to go there and have to face a bigger and bigger crowd. If I want to face a crowd, I'll go to Loon, which I go there too. But I just think that the things that you people said here tonight are something worth embracing. You know, don't fix what is broken. Okay, it seems like this phase 1, and I'll leave with this, okay? We all know that phase 1 is the hotel and some kind of a restaurant thing. Okay, again, the lady here has been skiing at Gunstock since 1953. Part of the appeal of Gunstock is that rustic, small mountain feel, right? We don't want big private companies in there developing the place. Well, what's the difference between a big private company or a local private company? I don't really see any difference, and I really think that the master plan should take a look inward, look at what works, and see how we can keep this going for the future to sustain it and preserve that property. So I think the executive summary is good, but I think that maybe people need to rethink this too, because bigger is not always better. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Raymond Howard. I want to go back to about 4 years ago. There was discussion about buying a computer program which also used GPS that was attached to the groomers that measured the snow depth. I forget what the name of that program was. Does anybody remember? I was just wondering, did we buy that program?
We bought one last year.
Okay, and what was the cost last year?
What was the cost?
Yeah.
$100,000.
It was 100,000? Okay, I think it was originally like 60 or 80. Did it prove valuable for, was there cost savings with that purchase?
Well, I mean, there will be. We got our base data this year, so we know exactly what we have. Not only does it measure the depth, it measures, hey, Dan, tell them about it.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no,
you know.
he's our snowmaking supervisor. He's the one that found the system, and he's the one that's been using it.
Dan Carver.
Dan Carver, snowmaking group.
I'm a snowmaking grooming manager here at Gunstock. So anyways, the snow rate system that we invested in, we had previously demoed 3-4 years ago, as you mentioned, SnowSat, which was a competitor to SnowRate. We found that the SnowRate system, which is what we chose to invest in last summer, offered us more granular data that we can really pull out, as well as offering a cheaper price per machine. So while we did spend $100,000 on the SnowRate for this year, the $60,000 you referenced would have only been for one machine with the SnowSat system, whereas the $100,000 got us 3 machines. But that data allows us to see basically each segment of trail, snow gun by snow gun, how much snow is in that section of trail, and allows us to pinpoint where we have thin spots versus where we have thick spots, to allow our snowmakers to make sure they're firing the correct guns up to even out our snow depths.
Okay, thanks for the update.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to reiterate what my friend Kathy said, that we've been up to the mountain over 30 times and we've really enjoyed it, and you guys have done an awesome job, and I really do appreciate it. I've only lived in Guilford for 4 years, and I really didn't think I'd have to be coming to these meetings. I thought it just kind of ran kind of smoothly, which I think it did in the past, and I hope that we can get back to that so I can go home and spend time at my own house. That's really where I think you're doing a great job, so let them do their job.
Amen.
Ian Parkhurst from Guilford.
Yes, ma'am.
Gretchen Casey, I live in Gilmington Ironworks. I'm curious, we have about 200,000 skier visits a year. When you reference talking to multiple people about the importance of the Stockade Lodge and changing in there, I'm curious what that number is compared to the number of skiers that we service. And as a business, it's not just to Belknap County residents. We're servicing all of those 200,000 skier visits. So do you have a rough idea, or can you share with us how many people you're referencing?
Well, I've had people come to me spontaneously and say, the first thing I want you to do is not let them take away the Stockade Lodge. These are unsolicited comments.
I get it all the time in the grocery store as well, believe me, I hear you, but are we talking like 5 people, 10 people, 500 people, 5,000?
I can't give you an exact number, but it's not 5 or 10. I can tell you that when I've raced there, every single time I go over there, there's dozens of families in there with children. Yes, they're picnicking at lunchtime. So there's a lot of people that were used to using that lodge. And I know last year with COVID, they stopped using it, but I can be pretty well assured that they would be back there if it was available now. So I think that's something that people do miss. I'm not saying that I'm totally against using part of that lodge for a restaurant, but given how successful and how far into the black that we're operating right now with a lodge that's not functional right there, I don't know that we should be a slave to the dollar when it comes to figuring out what's going to be the best use of that lodge. In other words, should we say you can't use this anymore to put your gear on simply because we can make more money by using it as a restaurant? I think we need to look at both, because I don't want the dollar to be the only determinant of how we use that lodge.
I personally think you're misinformed with what the intention is or the motivation for updating that restaurant. As a sales manager at Gunstock, I can tell you that it would be awesome to be able to have a function space in the winter to service the dozens of company outing requests that we get. Right now, that space doesn't exist. There's no private space available for function rentals compared to I guess almost any other mountain in New Hampshire that has that type of functionality. And I do believe there's alternatives for people that need to get ready closer to the lodge. I certainly understand folks with disabilities, folks with small children. All of those things are very important. I personally hate, and I think the hardest part about skiing is getting up to the lift. So I get what you're saying, but I think there's alternatives. So that's why I was curious about the number of people, because I think that's important when we're considering the functionality of the space and what's in best interest for the business.
And I think all of those things should go into a larger discussion about the best use of that
I
land.
think I think you're just misinformed on those discussions. I think you're assuming that we haven't done the legwork.
I think uninformed
I don't
is the
think
correct
anybody's
word.
made any
Uninformed,
allegations.
sorry.
I just said I think it needs to be more fully discussed.
Okay.
Sir?
My name is Skip Murphy. I'd like to pass a couple things out, if that's all right.
What time's breakfast? Still open.
What that is speaking to a right to know that I made of Tom, for the operating budget, which is a normal thing of government agencies. RSA 91A is probably the citizen's most powerful tool to keep government in check. And I can see one of the huge problems here tonight, and probably going forward and in the past, is this a business or is this a government agency? Is it a company or is it a subdivision of the state of a subdivision of the state? Different rules apply to different entities. What I just passed out was I have a number of friends here, since I've been a political blogger for 16 years here in Belknap County and around the state and nationally. I made a request for the budget. I was turned down for the primary reason of we have to protect the business. What I'm showing is that the complete budget was put out a few years ago. Nothing ever happened to the business. And I'm asking the commission if they would take a vote to make sure that you are within RSA 91 precepts in releasing that budget in the format requested. This is not something that I've never done before. I've done it many times to other subdivisions of the state. At the general ledger line item, I understand it's not small, but that's fine. I've looked at large budgets most of my career. I want to understand what's going on in Gunstock. 91A gives me that right to do so. I know, Tom, you sent me an exception saying, no, you're not going to do that. I'm asking that, since the precedent has already been set, that the commission would vote to do that. I will also say I had done a right to know for past emails of both Tom and Kathy, and those were given to me. Some of it was mundane as expected. Some of it was very interesting, and a few of the emails were rather disturbing. But the interesting stuff, to allay your fears, Tom, contained a lot of financial information. I've done nothing with it. I have not given it to your competition, nor would I give it to your competition. That was not my purpose in asking for the budget at that line level. And given now that a friend seeing what I was looking for sent that to me, again, I'm asking for an override on that decision. I also have one more right to know that I am given to the commissioners, which is something that I would expect to be fulfilled. And with that, I say thank you for your time and lawful consideration on both matters.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So I don't know how many of you know 91A. Until 2 years ago, I never heard of it. There's a short memo by a former Attorney General on this RSA, which probably isn't longer than 15 pages long, that is 138 pages long. That's the memo on 91A. So it's a complex statute when you try to implement it. And I believe, I don't know if there was another member of the delegation that suggested that we, and I don't know who offers 91A training.
That would be the New Hampshire Right to Know Association.
Okay.
That's another advocacy group out there.
Yes, and so I think that that's a worthy undertaking for this commission, because you can read one section of it, one statute, and then you have to read another one, and I've obviously done that for a long time, but some of the finer points are patently ambiguous in the statute, and if there is someone that can help all of us at the commission and management level understand and comply, I think that's a wonderful idea, Mr. Murphy, and I applaud your efforts. I think that the thing that I considered about, I was aware of this budget request, is, and I think there are people in the audience that can confirm this, is I'm guessing that the the Belknap County budget is probably available. And I'm also guessing that the nursing home is probably available. Can someone confirm that?
I could write to know that tonight.
So.
They're online.
All right, so if they're online, I think for you, Tom, and Mr. Murphy's inquiry, is if the other elements, and I don't know anything about the jail or whatever the other parts of the Belknap County municipal operations are, the nursing home, there are plenty of publicly operated nursing homes, I'm guessing. And so if their budget is available, I think Mr. Murphy's request seems reasonable. So if,
I just don't know how many nursing homes competitively go after the same market. And maybe they do, maybe they're marketing the hell out of nursing homes, and I've just missed it. But, you know, it says in the 91A, which I, in the past 2 weeks, I've become a lot more familiar with than I wanted to. It says that you do not have to get at anything that puts you at a competitive disadvantage, and I'm not quoting it exactly.
Correct.
And we are competitively working in an environment in New Hampshire against a lot of other ski areas. And I would love to see all their budgets and all their line items and all the geo codes. And I think it puts that as at a competitive disadvantage to be able to let those numbers out in the public. And it does say that in the 91A, and I'm sure that Mr.
It does.
knows more than I do about it. But
It does say competitive, it also says proprietary. But again, it comes back to that tension between, are you a business, as in a private company, or operating as a private company, which most of the people here have talked as if it is a business, especially you, Kathy. Or are you, I'm a software engineer, principal consultant, software architecture. My job was always to fix things, multi-million-dollar pieces of software, and it was always a case of what is the root cause? What is the root basis of what you're looking at? For all of the success that you're having right now, you are a government agency whose product is snow. In all of its varied forms and all the way that you entertain people, but you're still a government agency.
Want to buy some snow?
Oh, I used to ski until my knees and my hips went and my back.
so what is your interest in this budget?
That's
What do you expect to?
I want to see what the numbers are. Now, as you told me in one of your emails that it was not up to me to tell you who was a valid commissioner, I will tell you that it's above your pay grade to understand why I want that budget.
Can I ask in the goal of trying to reach some agreement here, if we release this 3 days before the start of fiscal year 17, and clearly it didn't result in the demise of the mountain, why can't we comply with his 91A request and avoid a legal fight? Because I sense that's what's coming if you don't comply with his 91A request.
You guys want to tell me you want me to comply with his request? I'll comply with his request. If you think that's a good idea and you feel that that's important to do, I think it's a bad idea, but if you guys want to tell me that's what I got to do, You're the commissioner.
Well, the only other option is we go to an attorney and say, do we have an escape clause with this proprietary information, and see if they agree. And even if we have an attorney who says to us, yeah, I agree, that doesn't prevent him from taking us to court, in which case a judge may say, well, yeah, proprietary is reserved for private business, and you're not a private business, so you fail. And then we wind up getting whacked with violation fees, or potentially you personally get whacked with violation fees. I don't want to see any of that happen. So I'm just trying to find, a comfortable agreement or compromise here.
All I ask is that the law be followed. And Kathy, I know you said you don't want to hear the word transparency anymore tonight, but I'm going to use it.
I mean, what more can we show you than we've just done the whole P&L? We've showed you the 6-year average, 6-year budget numbers. You need to go pick through every GL code. Like, listen, you guys say, send it to them. You guys say, as commissioners, Tom, I want you to release that information to Mr. Murphy. I'll do it. But you guys gotta tell me to do it.
I would make a motion that we agree to comply with Mr. Murphy's budget request. If the county budget and the nursing home budget are available online, I'm not confident. And are our audited financial statements available?
Not online.
I
think it just, you know what, to be honest, I don't really visit the website very often, so I don't know what's up. They are handed out, but I don't know.
Peter, I'm glad you brought up the nursing. I'm glad you brought up the nursing home and the jail. The nursing home and jail are funded by taxpayer revenues of people that have to pay their taxes or they lose their property. This is not taxpayer funded. Our income that comes into this business is generated by people who willingly spend their money to buy our products and services. And we compete against people in the public and the private sector for those customers. They would love to know what our
Point of order here.
Pardon?
You gotta understand that even a businessman gets revenue from voluntary people coming in and buying his product so he can pay his taxes to the county. I'm so sick and tired of you saying, this isn't the county's money. This is the county's money. This is the taxpayer's money. This is the taxpayer-owned business, if you want to call it a business. And everything that goes with that business belongs to the county.
I have to agree that it's not, the issue here is not where the revenue comes from. It's the fact that the mountain is owned by the county, it's owned by the taxpayer. It doesn't matter where the revenue comes from. It's the fact that the mountain is owned by the citizens of Belknap County, and therefore it's a governmental operation, and we have to comply with those laws that apply to governmental operations.
Mr. Kaidash, may I address what you just said? I understand what your background is, and you've been extremely successful in business, and I applaud you for that, and you've reaped the rewards for that. But in providing the snow product, it doesn't matter where the revenue is coming from, as was just stated. It doesn't matter that you're running it as a business. The basis of this is that it's part of government. There are different rules and different regulations, and yes, some of them, as you were finding out tonight, make the democratic process, because of that, slow, messy, and infuriating on both sides. The problem is, you don't have a choice as far as the commission is concerned, or the people who work at Gunstock. I used to ski at Gunstock. I used to love it until everything went to crap in my body, and now I can't. But you have to follow the law. Otherwise, I would tell you, if you so believe in it, take it private or lease it and reap that benefit. And then once you do that, then you're not subject to these laws, like RSA 91A and a bunch of others, RS 399, and a whole bunch of others that I could stand here and list, but I'm not going to. All I'm asking for is to follow the law in a lawful request. And I have a number of other requests that are coming.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we're in a public comment period or what, but Mr. Murphy keeps referring to following the law. And it appears to me that there's some confusion about whether the request is within the law. As Tom pointed out, this kind of a gray area about the competitiveness and going down to the general legend detail. So I'm not sure it's appropriate to vote on that tonight until there's more clarity on the law.
Thank you.
That's it, we have 5 business days to
Right.
comply with this, so we
Yeah.
can
Well,
use the 5 days.
We're already beyond the 5 days.
This says March 20,
Now, that's a brand new one.
this is a brand new one, so this is the one that I was served.
No, I emailed the right to know for the budget quite a few number of days ago. Tom did provide a response within the 5 legal days. I have no problem with that at all. What I'm asking for is a reconsideration of his no answer from the commissioners.
Could we have our legal take a look at that, see whether or not that's...
Yeah, we have to know who represents us first.
You know, I would suggest that you guys just go on the website and look up 91A.
Oh, believe me, I have.
Okay? It's written in English, and laws were written for ordinary people. Okay, we don't always have to run to a lawyer. I sued the county delegation, and I argued and won the court case at the Supreme Court of New Hampshire. I didn't spend a dime on a lawyer.
He's a welder.
Okay, I'm a welder. Okay, this can be done. Just give him the information, and he doesn't have to tell you why he needs the information. You have to give it to him. Otherwise, like he said, privatize the place. You either want it private or you want it county-owned. You can't have it both ways.
And I think you have to talk to the commissioners, because they will make the decision. And, you know, we've given you our opinion, so.
I believe that compliance with 91A is an absolute. And if commissioners want to take this, because I think we do have to look at the law, as this gentleman suggested, because I do have Attorney General Foster's 138-page memo. I don't know where, I honestly do not know where the line is of the claim that it's proprietary. And I don't think that we can make a proper decision. My gut reaction is I think that Mr. Murphy's request may be appropriate. But I think we need to look at that. If Mr. Murphy can reach an agreement with us of, okay, the commission, because we get deluged with emails over the past week. I can't count how many emails come in regarding Gunstock. So I think if the commissioners concur that we should take this under advisement and try to understand, as the commission, what compliance is appropriate in this situation, I think that would be prudent. Is there any discussion?
Well, because there's a 5-day deadline that we have to comply with a 91A request. We don't have a law firm under retainer for the Gunstock Commission, so we would have to go out and find a law firm, and because no one commissioner can act on behalf of the commission without the express consent of the commission, we can't just empower you to go out and find a law firm and engage them for this question. We would have to bring this back to the next meeting, in which case, now we're beyond the 5 days. So, I given what the deadlines are, and this is all beyond our control, I have to agree with Commissioner Ness that probably the best course of action is to just
But my
comply with the
understanding is
request.
that if you need to have more time, you can ask for more time if you need to have these questions answered before you reply.
You just have to reply.
Right. You have to reply, but we may need more time before we can make a reply. That's my understanding.
And Skip has graciously agreed
to,
I believe, you...
I'm sorry, Jade, what are you saying that I've agreed to?
what I thought I just heard from you was that you did receive a response.
I
What
did.
I just received from you here is dated for,
But that's a different right to know.
Okay, okay.
If you read, it has
So-
nothing to do with the budget.
okay.
Well, Skip, can I ask, would you be so gracious as to allow us to engage an attorney and get a response and bring this back to the April meeting and then make a decision on this? Or are we testing your limits of patience? I know that's a lot to ask.
I
but-
raised 2 bipolar ADHD sons. I have learned patience. But let me throw this back at you. Meet me halfway. Create the file, put it in escrow.
Well, isn't it already in escrow at Gunstock?
Yeah.
No. With a third party. I can find that. And I can find a neutral party for that.
But
And
the
then,
information's not disappearing. Like, I don't know, I mean, you put funds in escrow, I don't.
Yeah, how does
Data is-
that work out?
I think that complicates it even more. I'm just
Well-
saying, there seems to be a desire from the commission to want to comply with your request if it's required by the law, and there is some debate as to whether we have protection under the law. So we're asking, can we consult an attorney to see if they agree with you, or if they agree with Mr. Day, who says we have protection under the law?
and that sounds reasonable, but with one exception. My answer is already no. So if you read clauses 7 and 8, if I get more no's, I now have a pattern to bring to Superior Court.
I would like to comment that I've made many 9180 requests to different public bodies, and it's very frequent that you get a response. If we need more time to look into this, this is not something unusual. You don't have to give Granite Rock such incredible deference on something like this. It would be just an ordinary course of business if you need more time to say that.
The problem, Mrs. Larson, is that I wasn't given the answer of, we need more time. It was a flat no.
Yeah, this one.
That's a problem you put yourselves into.
Mr. Chairman, I received a question from one of the delegation members before we run out of time tonight over the weekend concerning the Indy Pass, and I would just like to address and recognize that question. Paul Terry had asked why Gunstock does not participate in the Indy Pass program, and I just thought it would be a good time, with your permission, to defer that question to Tom Day, the resource, who is sitting before us, if allowed.
We can do that. I think if Mr. Murphy, to steal the term gracious, if you could be gracious enough to, notwithstanding what your request was, if we can collectively rephrase Tom Day's reply of from no to can we have an extension of time so that the commission can understand our obligations and the impact of your request. Is that acceptable?
Given that way of phrasing, yes.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion then that we allow you as an attorney to find perhaps 2 or 3 law firms that are proficient in 91A and bring that information to us at the April meeting, and we can make a decision on who we would like to ask for an opinion from?
I think we probably would have to have a motion that I would have to engage counsel. Is that appropriate?
Well, but what I want is for you to bring information back and say, you know, I've got 3 attorneys, one charges this, one charges that, one charges
I can do
that.
that.
We can decide who we want to go with, and then we can make a motion to engage an attorney at the April meeting, and then hopefully have a decision, you know,
Is
shortly.
that a motion? Is that a motion?
The motion is that we have Commissioner Ness bring to the April meeting a list of 2 or 3 different law firms that are proficient in 91A.
I'll
That
second.
would be happy to answer this question.
Second? We need to have a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
There, unanimous. Okay.
Who seconded?
I second. I second.
I made the motion. Commissioner Kaiser seconded.
All right. Is there someone else?
Yeah, I had a question. and I apologize about being uneducated of the process, but Cannon Mountain is owned by the state of New Hampshire.
Yes.
If they fall into the same guidelines of 91A, and Gunstock has to, and I guess that solves the problem.
Potentially.
We have spoken,
before.
sir, yes.
So I talked to a close friend of mine that has a long time association with Canon. And the challenge with Canon is that its financials are stuck in the DNCR budget. And so if you were, you had a lot of time and you had the ability to go in and sort of dissect the financials, you could do that. But because that was the first thing that came to mind, is can you get that from Canon? And I think the answer is it's sort of challenging because it's stuck in so many different other things. It's a fair question. That's a really fair question. So I think we've answered the question. We've reached a compromise with Mr. Murphy. I think your Indy Pass question was wonderful.
Do you have a quick answer for that? I know that we touched on a couple of pass options, and I believe it was January's meeting, maybe February, where you discussed the merits and maybe not so much of these pass programs. So if you could just briefly touch on the Indy Pass program super quickly.
Yep.
It's for independent mountains.
They approached me my first year here, so January 15, 2020. I didn't feel that it was going to fit the model that we were going to try to develop here, that we didn't need to have that part of our pass program. We had our independent passes here, and it didn't work for me, and it worked for some places. I didn't think it would work for them.
So is that a management decision, or is that a commissioner decision? I would appreciate clarifying that.
That would be, I can't speak out of turn, but we hire him to do a.
Sounds like it was a management decision.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like
Yeah,
it was
sure.
a management decision. The question is, would it be appropriate for the commissioners to take the question under advisement? The only reason I ask is because I received an inquiry from my son, who enjoys coming up here to ski with my young grandson. He noticed that 3 other ski centers, small ski centers, Pat's Peak, Waterville Canyon, and one other one in New Hampshire, participated in the program, and he was just curious to know why Gunstock did not participate in the program, and so I told him I would raise the question. In addition to trying to continue to pursue Representative Harvey Bollia's question with respect to a discounted pass for Belknap County residents that doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. So both of those are of interest to me as a state representative. Thank you. And an individual, and as a father and grandfather. So do you have a quick response on both those?
Yeah, the Indy Pass didn't fit our business
Okay.
model. I still don't think it does.
Okay.
And the pass discount for Belknap County residents, I believe that was answered at one point, that we had taken, Robin, you were here before me. So.
Yeah, that was many years ago, probably, I'm gonna guess maybe 15 might be a fair guess. We did some analysis and realized that so many of our pass holders, in fact, were Belknap County residents. So rather than punishing the small percentage that were not Belknap County residents, we decided to maintain a very low pass price that benefits everyone. So it's not that we're not discounting Belknap County folks, we're just not charging extra to those living outside of Belknap County.
If you'd be willing to give me your email address, I would like to pass that on to Representative Bollia so she can get this question resolved once and for all.
Sure.
For the numerous residents in her area who love to ski here and are kind of frustrated they're not getting an answer to the question.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Are we safe now to conclude the public comment portion of the meeting?
Yes.
So I believe that Commissioner Kydash made a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
I would second that motion. Do we have a vote?
Aye.
Unanimous? Aye.
Crop TV.